Good evening, everyone. We're about to start this voting session for tonight for whatever the date is. Before we, 21st, I should have known that. Before we do, I'm going to stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd like to join me, please feel free to do so. Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we go any further, I'd like to ask you to keep Ms. Hawkins in your prayers. Her dad passed away last night, so she will not be with us tonight, so we want to remember her in our prayers. First item on the agenda is roll call. Mr. Johnson, do you have the roll?
Yes, sir.
All right. Next item on the agenda is approval of regular agenda as presented. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Mr. Daniels, second by Ms. Andrews. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is adoption of the consent agenda. Is there a motion? Motion by Ms. Hayes,
Second.
second by Ms. Andrews. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item, consideration of minutes, discussion and interaction regarding the minutes of the April 23rd regular meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Mr. Daniels, second by Mr. Wise. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is fun stuff. Recognition of Emma Lane Babbitt. A note to my principal. Come on down. And I hope I pronounced your name right. If I didn't, please forgive me.
Hello, my name is Emma Lane Babcock, and I'm here to present my idea called A Note to My Principal, for students to write notes to their principal in a healthy, positive, and confidential way. Here's how it works. First, the students write a note to their principal and put it in a little slot on the top of the mailbox. Then they raise the red flag to let the principal know that there is a note in there. And just so you know, there's a lock on it that only the principal and vice principal have a key to. As of now, 6 elementary schools have a mailbox. This is my 7th mailbox and is going to Liberty Creek Elementary School. My goal is 1 mailbox in every elementary school in the state of Tennessee, and hopefully across America one day. Thank you to all the principals who have a mailbox. W.E. Burris Station Camp, White House Intermediate, Indian Lake Guild, and my school, St. Joseph. Thank you, Sumner County School Board, for inviting me to present today. I would love your support to put 1 mailbox in every elementary school in Sumner County. Thank you.
Okay, I got called out to just commend you and thank you for your work. Would you like for Dr. Hall to say a few words? You have a mailbox, right? Okay. And how meaningful is this to you?
Oh, very.
The principal of a school. And this is a token of just of our gratitude and what an excellent student you are and how you're giving to this community and what a wonderful idea. I would like to see a mailbox at every school for our principals in Sumner County. So I wish you the best. And she is Miss Tennessee, y'all.
So I think this is going to be a wonderful thing for our kids at the school to be able to write a note to the principal and know that this is something they would be heard. And they don't have to come into the office or anything like that. They can just drop the note in the mailbox. Emma Lane reached out to me probably 3 or 4 weeks ago and then delivered our mailbox last week. We're excited to implement this 1st of August when we come back to school and be able to hear our students and let them know that they are being heard.
Oh, I'm good. Y'all.
Let's do it over here by the mailbox.
I think the mailbox should be in this. Makes me want to go back and start teaching elementary school. She's darling. I have the privilege and honor to introduce to you Sylvia Rapp. Sylvia, you can. I'm going to say a few words about Sylvia, and Sylvia is our cellist, is going to play a number for us, and Sylvia would like to say a few words afterwards. So, Sylvia Rapp, 18 years old. She began her musical studies with the piano at age 6, though her passion for music blossomed with her discovery of the cello in her 6th grade orchestra class and Miss Smith's orchestra class at Ellis Middle School. In 2020, Sylvia was named a 91 classical, that's the National Classical FM 2020-2021 Student Composer Fellow, and studied with composer Christina Spine. How do you pronounce that, Sylvia? Spinay. Sylvia has been a member of the Meyer Jackson Blair Pre-College Orchestral Program at Vanderbilt since 2017 and holds a principal position in the Nashville Curb Youth Symphony. Other orchestra experiences include the Middle Tennessee and All-State Orchestra Ensembles, the MTSU and APSU, Austin Peay, high school honors orchestras, Belmont Strings Crossings, and the Tennessee Cello Workshop. Additionally, Sylvia was one of the 8 participants selected across North America for the 2023 McDuffie Center for Strings Labor Day Festival. Sylvia has spent past summers at the Governor's School for the Arts and the Swanee Summer Music Festival, and will attend the Green Chamber Music Festival in Vermont this summer. When she is not on stage, Sylvia enjoys performing for the residents of local retirement nursing homes. Well, in the fall of 2024, she will be attending the McDuffie Center for Strings at Mercer University. And now we have the joy of hearing Miss Sylvia Rapp play. And what are you playing for us, Sylvia?
I will be playing Bach Cello Suite No. 1 in C Major Prelude.
Here
Got a
goes.
few things to say up here.
Sylvia is a student at Hendersonville High School.
Sylvia, would you like to stay and play in the remainder of the board meeting?
Music to calm the savage soul, I tell you. It's beautiful, Sylvia.
Thank you so much. That piece is called the Cello Song for a reason. It's very iconic. You know, this piece was actually the very first thing I'd ever heard on the cello, way back on the first day of orchestra class at Ellis Middle School. Looking back, being in that class turned out to be one of the best things that could have ever happened to me. Upon entering middle school, though, I knew nothing of the strings world and had no intention of joining the orchestra. For some reason, thankfully, I was placed in it anyway. My opinions changed when I listened to that very same movement of Bach during the cello demonstration. I was captivated by the cello's longing tone and remarkably human-like range. Needless to say, I went home with the cello that day. As the year progressed, my love for the cello and the orchestra only grew. I was eager to improve, so I signed up for private lessons, joined a youth orchestra, and started taking summer music camps. Now, I'm heading to a music conservatory on a full tuition scholarship. Now, none of this would have been even remotely possible without my middle school orchestra. If it wasn't for that initial encounter with the cello, that first spark of inspiration, I would not be standing before you today. I don't know where I would be, and I honestly don't want to know. Before 6th grade, I'd never even seen a cello before. Now, it's my entire life. My story is far from the only one. It's true that the professional music world is teeming with musicians who start at age 3, have parents in the symphony, and attend private arts high schools. However, for the vast majority of students without those initial advantages, public school orchestras serve as a gateway to a previously unimaginable strings career. And even if a student doesn't want to pursue a career in music, the orchestra can still offer a plethora of benefits. First of all, they'll be offered tons of scholarships to play in their college's orchestra, which reduces the cost of a post-secondary education. Second of all, they'll be sought after desirable companies, as students who play musical instruments typically display a stronger work ethic than most, I've noticed. And they'll also just have a fun and interesting hobby in their spare time. So if we let our county's sole orchestra program disappear, what are we losing? How many future students will never discover the instrument that gives their lives meaning? How many students will miss out on scholarships and enrichment? How many future audiences will be deprived of beautiful performances? If school orchestra programs had never existed, what would happen to students like me? I know there isn't much I can do about what goes on here. All I can do is tell you, show you just how much this orchestra has impacted me. How, because of this orchestra, I am excited for my future and thrilled to be alive. This program has changed me forever, and it can continue to keep changing future students forever. However, we must keep it alive. So, Ms. Smith, thank you.
Our appreciation and just acknowledgement of your great successes and continued successes as you go to the conservatory and on. Can I go ahead and get your autograph? Yes, sign right there.
Okay, my cursive is not the best though.
I'm going to say I have Sylvia Rapp's autograph. When you are in Metropolitan Symphony, Boston Symphony or something. And we did want to get a picture of you. Andrea, you join?
Absolutely.
And your mother is Jennifer. She's with you. So come on up. Let's get a picture.
Should I pose with my cello?
I think so.
Okay, totally hold your cello. So much. Oh, sorry about that.
Thank you. While Sylvia's getting her things up, you need some help. Andrew knows how to do all that.
She's got it.
And Mom, this is Sylvia's. There you go. Okay, next, I have the honor and the privilege to recognize the Hendersonville High School MCJ ROTC. Why don't y'all come on up here so we can just look. It's my favorite dress uniform. The Hendersonville High School Marine Corps Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps program celebrates a year of extraordinary accomplishments characterized by outstanding achievements in leadership, service, and competition. The highlights of the program's achievements during the 2023-2024 academic year include national recognition. The Department of the Navy and the Headquarters Marine Corps honored HHS MCROTC with the distinction of Naval Honors School for the 5th time in 6 years, underscoring the program's commitment to excellence in community service, extracurricular involvement, and academic achievement. This distinguishes Hendersonville High School as one of the best overall programs in the country. Selection criteria for this award compares community service hours, extracurricular involvement, drill team, rifle team, leadership and academic team, and the Raider team results. Additionally, the requirements for selection include the academic achievement, scholarship value, and a full 2-day program inspection by the regional director. Is there a lot of pressure in that 2-day period? Yeah. Remarkably, this is the 5th time, like I stated, in the last 6 years that HHS has been selected for this distinction. I am going to let Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Stone share. There's the Raider team, the rifle team, the color guard, the drill team, because I think it's better just to hear from him. There are so many awards. 8 of these cadets have already committed to serve. To serve in the nation's armed forces. And several cadets received scholarships totaling more than $225,000 combined, including an acceptance to the United States Naval Academy. Thank you for serving our country.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes, for recognizing these people. These guys have worked really, really hard, and I just appreciate the opportunity to demonstrate what they've done. Like she said, I don't know how you beat that, but we had a national championship Raider team. That's like our obstacle course team. That it's more like a Spartan race. We compete against all the other schools. We also had the rifle team that was again top 10 in the country for 2 years in a row. The folks in uniform up here are the staff. They're the ones that do the organization for getting the Naval Honor School designation, which is a lot of work and it takes a lot of time. So they did a great job. We're just blessed with the Sergeant Major. Oh, and actually Sergeant Major also he was the Teacher of the Year for the VFW Post and the region. And then also with us, we have our principal. Where's he at? He's over here. There he is. Oh, he's in the back. So we've got great support. And then lastly, I'll just say that from the community's perspective, year after year after year, we have great parent support too. So with a good school support and good parent support and good kids, a lot of things are possible. And they did a great job. So thanks, guys, and thank you for Ms. Hayes for recognizing them again.
Absolutely, my honor. One of your cadets, he's in charge. You've all been given, I think we've got some extras for those who couldn't be here, but a medallion just to thank you for your representation of this county and the work that's done in Sumner County Schools, how you spread this across the state, and you are that representation, and even in the nation. So, and you do it well, and we just appreciate you being here tonight and to honor you. And I love seeing these women up here. You go, girls. Thank you. We're going to get a picture. Oh, good. Oh, thank you. Is this too wide?
Yeah, we got it. I think we'll just step back a little bit. Everybody group in. Everybody smile.
Thanks for being here tonight. It's amazing.
Thank y'all very much for being here. We thank you for your service. Next item on the agenda is recognition of Portland High Speech Team.
Mr. Woods will take over.
All right. Thank you,
Mr. Gregory and I discussed this earlier, and if you were going to get the vote tonight on the budget, you thought I ought to do this part here. So, isn't that right? That's what you. All right, could I have my speech team members up here? Ms. Barnes as well. So just a little history. Portland High School speech team was started in 2000 with 4 students. Ironically, that's how many we have here tonight. A few couldn't be here. We became a charter school in 2009, which was prior to me coming to Portland High School. Miss Starnes has been the speech team coach all of those years. She was inducted into the Tennessee Speech Hall of Fame in 2013. She was awarded the Crider Tennessee State Teacher of the Year in 2015 and was awarded in 2023 the Distinguished Silver Gold Key from the National Office. There's many more awards that she has on here, but and keep this going, we're going to have to move on just a little bit. This year, our team was awarded the leading chapter for all of Tennessee, which is based on points since our 2009 year. Currently, we are ranked 9th in the state of Tennessee as a team and have 7 academic All-Americans, 3 of which are on this year's team, Miss Callie Head, Elizabeth Allen, and Madeline Averill. This year, the team had 24 first-place finishes and 2 team sweepstakes, as well as octafinalists, quarterfinalists, semifinalists, and a 5th and 4th place in nationally ranked tournaments at Harvard, Emory, the University of Texas, and the University of Florida. This team travels quite a bit. Ms. Starnes is always looking for donations, by the way. Dr. Langford won Administrator of the Year for the state of Tennessee. That's our first ever winner in Sumner County. And when you're looking at our students, our seniors this year, Callie won Student of the Year for the state of Tennessee, our first ever winner. She also had the 3rd highest national points from PHS and was awarded the Speech Communications Department Award. She is ranked 2nd in the state for informative speaking and duo interpretation and 12th in overall rankings. Elizabeth Allen is ranked 4th in the state for informative speaking and 24th in overall rankings. As a junior, Mia is ranked 10th in the state in the program Oral Interpretation. At the qualifying national tournament, Callie and Elizabeth took 1st place, and Mia took 1st place in her program as well. And you have to be in the top 3, and on that day, they all qualified for nationals and will be competing this year. And next year, Elizabeth and Callie are going to be continuing their speech competition journey as they have been recruited and accepted at Western Kentucky University, which is one of the top speech programs in the country. So I want to congratulate the speech team on their awards, but there's one other kind of little twist to this whole thing. Believe it or not, we have 2 accomplished pilots in the room. Callie and Isaac both have received their private pilot's license, and so when we had heard we were competing with Liberty Creek, we had to do it a little bit better and get 2, not just 1. So we have 2 pilots in the room as well. So I want to congratulate them on their awards.
Let me just say, if you're not familiar with the speech world, everything that Dr. Woods just said is hugely important. This is one of the premier chapters, not just in the state of Tennessee, but in the nation. And I got the opportunity to spend a little time with them this year and over the last couple of years, and to see the way that they've grown from the time they were freshmen until this year has been remarkable, and they've just done great work. And to be selected, I think Western Kentucky's won 4 or 5 straight national championships, so they're really going to a national powerhouse speech team. And it's exciting to get to see y'all continue that in college. But and that starts with Ms. Starnes, who, you know, there were years where speech and debate almost died, and many programs have come and gone over the years, but she's been rock solid and has kept at Portland High School and in Sumner County. You know, she not only does it for Portland High School, but anybody in the county that wants to compete in speech, middle school or high school, she bends over backwards to help and accommodate. And her award and recognition this year is also a huge deal, and for the Portland chapter. So congratulations, and thank y'all so much. We really want to honor you tonight, because what you've accomplished is really extraordinary. So congratulations.
One last thing. Since you officially became a part of our team, you now get our team shirt.
It's going to make Mr. Gregory really happy.
It's very rare that we see put on a Portland High School. This is rare. Somebody get this on camera.
Little Rich boy.
You go in front.
Okay.
Perfect. Here, come on, sure. It's not over here. Ready? Yeah, Ms. Starnes also called out. She lost her voice midweek and recovered and called, was it 265 names on Saturday?
Yeah, that was a moment for sure. I had assistant principals real nervous. All right, so the other group I wanted to recognize is something that started at Portland High School last year in Sumner County, and that's our esports team. So Mr. Smart, will you come up? And I think Tony is here tonight, right?
Yes.
Okay. Come on up here real quick. I don't really know how all this came together, to be honest with you. Last fall, Mr. Smart came to me and said, you know, we got like one of the best video game players in the history of like the country in our school. I'm like, what are you talking about? And my kid plays video games. And he said, no, I'm telling you. Everybody said this guy's legit, like ranked and all these stats. I don't even know how you get ranked. So he figured it out and had Tony, Caleb, and Jackson Lyle. There's 3 of them. And we joined this esports division called Play BS, I believe is the one we're in, right? And they play Rocket League. So I don't know if you guys have ever played that, but you don't want to play him because they're really, really, really good. So just so you'll understand, last spring, I think it was this right? No, in the fall of last year, we played in the U.S. Central Region. Tennessee doesn't have their own state, so we have to play with other states. There were 73 teams. We won that, undefeated. Then in the spring, we played in the 97 team Central Region. They won that, undefeated. Went to the national tournament. I think we got bounced in the first round, didn't we? Second round. So that was our first loss. Guys were a little disappointed, but they had seen some things that they learned from, which is going to bode well, hopefully, for tomorrow, because they're getting ready to play again. But this spring, out of 97 teams, undefeated again. So in 3 years, a 30-1 record. They got the number 2 seed in the country. They got a first-round bye in the national tournament. We play tomorrow, and I think, based on what we learned last year in our first loss, it's potential they could win the whole darn thing. So this is absolutely crazy. Currently ranked number 2 in the country, first-round bye tomorrow, and something that's even more cool, they give college scholarships for this now. You can look it up. Ole Miss is one. There's all over the country. But Tony has earned a scholarship for his esports prowess, so to speak, at Cumberland University next year. They're going to pay his tuition, I believe. Isn't that correct? All right. So congratulations on that, Tony. He was also on our football team. So the way it works, we don't have an esports set up at school. Now, some schools do in the country. I can show them to you. They're amazing. They cost thousands of dollars when we're talking about budget. But they go home at 4 o'clock every day and play at their house. And so he would be coming off the football field, taking the helmet off, shoulder pads, running to the car, to jet to the house to be on the computer by 4 to do this. So football player, Rocket League esports guy, what a combo.
Wow. And I'll say something about that. We had a game moved to Thursday night. So he played at 4 o'clock, a Rocket League game they won, and then he turned around and started on the football team that night, got an interception.
Don't see it very often. They're grabbing trophy.
We have 3 of these. They're all they're all in the trophy case at school.
Mr. Gregory and I go home and play Rocket League here in a few minutes.
Good luck.
Well, we thank you all for being here tonight, and while you are welcome to stay here, we're fixing to get into the boring stuff now. So I'm going to just give us a couple of minutes, if anyone would like to leave before we get started. We'll just take about a 2 or 3 minute recess, and we'll be back in just a second. All right, let's call the meeting back to order. The next item on the agenda is public hearing from the public. When I call your name, come down to the microphone there. They'll turn it on for you. Give your name and address for the record. You'll have up to 5 minutes to speak on an agenda item. And please direct all your comments to the chair and don't call anyone out by name. So the first one on the agenda is Holly Cruz. Ms. Cruz, come on down.
Can you hear me? Holly Cruz, my address 3275 Hartsville Pike, Castellan Springs. Good evening, school board members. Thank you, as always, for having me to speak. I want to start this evening by just giving a big thank you to Benny Bills Elementary. I went to my daughter's 5th grade promotion this morning, and I am in like emotional mom feelings, and it's only 5th grade. So shout out to the parents that watch their seniors walk across the stage, because I can only imagine. And I say thank you to those Benny Bills teachers. They are the reason that I am here this evening. I'm here to speak about the proposed budget for 2024-2025 and the compensation plan that was proposed. I am a huge advocate for getting our teachers and our school staff the raise that they are much deserved and much needed. I think that doing this small raise for them is just the beginning, and I would love to see that dollar amount increased. But I know that we are working with a variety of constrictions on that. I have spoken with quite a few people and asked opinions about this compensation adjustment and giving them the raise that, again, is much needed and much deserved. And there is concern. There's concern that creating a reoccurring cost out of our reserves is risky. And I hope that you all up there this evening and Dr. Langford and our amazing finance department have worked tirelessly to create a budget that is pleasing to most. I am here to say and ask and express concern that those teachers at my daughter's school also have. The teachers at our Title I schools are dealing with an incredible amount of student need. And I have watched my daughters attend a Title I school for 6 years, and the need at those schools is huge. And I would like to just share some of the need that I think goes beyond a line item of a pay raise. So, hearing kindergarten students trashing rooms almost daily, leading to rooms needing to be cleared. Students eloping throughout the building, causing multiple adults, admin, office staff, assistants, guarding doors, trying to contain students to a room and possibly also having to clear that room. Students physically fighting, attacking adults, bringing weapons to school, and making threats to not only the teachers but also the other students in the room. It is a concern as a parent, and it is a concern for our teachers. I want to ensure that we as a community are taking care of our teachers and taking care of our students. So I am hoping that through this budget discussion, you can find money to provide our teachers with the needs and the support that they so desperately need. It goes beyond a pay raise. Yes, that more money is wonderful, but that is not going to fix the needs that some of our schools and our students are experiencing. And I want to be a champion of Sumner County Schools. I want to brag and talk about all of the fantastic things that are happening, because there are fantastic things that are happening. I see it every day with my daughters. But when I have a third grader who comes home and hasn't passed her TCAP and has to spend her last day of school doing a retest, I think about that loss of instructional time when she came home and said, well, we had to deal with student X today who sat and screamed for the entire class period. And you think, well, that's one daughter and one experience. And you think about all of the other classes and all of the other experience that those students have had and that potential learning loss. And so I know that my students being at a Title I school puts those things in play, but those teachers want to teach. They want to teach, and they need more than just a pay raise. Thank you.
Bruce Rang.
Good evening, everyone. Bruce Rang. My address is 1024 Heritage Woods Drive in Hendersonville. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about, this is my first time coming up here, been here the last few meetings, just wanted to get to know more about what happens at the school board and be more engaged. And I've got two kids today, one rising kindergartner at Burris, other a third grader, rising third grader at Burris. We're moving from HB Williams right now. So, and what I know is that, to talk about the compensation study and, how we're going to implement that here in the budget here, excited and engaged people are passionate about what they do. You know, I know we're not supposed to name names, but you know, Dr. Langford, my daughter, was so excited at the school closure videos, and she wanted to see those things, and she wanted to do it every single day, that the next day she wanted to take the video of me pulling around the four-wheeler in our yard, and we just had fun with that. She was engaged. She wanted to go back to school because she was engaged in that moment, right? She wants to be even more engaged after she did the Book of Honor signing. She was a great student. She got the Book of Honor signing, and you know, she loved that. Next year, she gets to go to Burris, and she gets to go to Hogwarts. They get sorted into houses at Burris, and you know, so she gets sorted into her house and wear her sorting hat. That's not how they do it, but and really, I'm hopeful her brother's in the same house for the sanity at my house when we get there. Just to be honest, but again, excited and engaged people are typically highly compensated or fairly compensated at a minimum, and good benefits packages add on to that, and you know, we just all have to have a choice to survive in this rapidly evolving economy. We all try to make adjustments to adapt to things we have no control over, and all the staff that's at the school, they impact my kids with how they're trying to live in that world every time they come home. On the May 13th budget committee meeting for the county commissioner, Commissioner Schoaf said he expects this budget year to be the market adjustment year for the budget. In future years, it'll be cost of living adjustments. If the staff needs $45 million to vote for the market adjustment, or whatever that needs to be today, I think it's time to address it sooner rather than later, because that isn't a COLA. That isn't something to be addressed in a future year. And the desire of the commission is to address market adjustments now. My issue is that using reserves as the mechanism to start that, we don't have a commitment to be able to continue that going forward, and that becomes a problem for next year. I understand the need for it, I understand the goals for it, but that's a reserve for a reason, and we don't know if we're gonna be able to continue it. Just this past week, one of the school board members had mentioned that we're gonna ask for money next year, not this year, from the county commission. But that doesn't seem like what the county commission wants. They want the market adjustments to be part of this year's conversation, just based on the committee meeting I watched the video of. So, as a citizen, I'm highly anti-tax. I don't want to pay more money. I don't. I pay more than my fair share. I think we all do. But the reality is I'm a realist first. And as a realist, I have to put what the interests of my kids are for the kids that we have supported here. I don't want to pull my kids out to do homeschool. I don't want to have to consider how I invest in private school. I don't want to consider that thing. I want to do the best we can to have the engaged people that are impacting my children's life as a kindergartner or third grader, to see wonderful children doing cello or esports or ROTC. That's what I want for my kids. So again, I'm anti-tax. But what I don't want is, I don't want next year for us to be Ann Arbor. I don't know if anybody saw the news today, but they voted for 141 people to be cut from their staff because they had a $20.4 million budget they had to make up. There's no commitment right now that I see to be able to do that. So, you know, again, if we need $45 million for everyone, for the staff to be able to be whole and be engaged and want to be able to make the best decision for everyone's children going forward, let's make the decision now. My ask is, if I could have an ask, is that let's give the opportunity to the commission to make the decision that they want to make. Let's afford them and empower them to make the decision, if that's even possible. I don't know what's possible, but if it's $45 million, they'll make a decision. But if we're just using reserves, that's a decision for next year. I prefer we make a decision this year, because I don't want to get on.
Next item on the agenda is matters involving council. We don't have any matters involving council. Next after that is reports from the director.
Right, so some good news. Station Camp boys soccer won 6-0 earlier today. Miss Brown's son is the goalie on the Station Camp high school soccer team, and we're celebrating Max's win today. Also, Mr. Crook texted me just a few moments ago. and said that Station Camp High School won the state championship in pole vault. Allie Shingleton was state champion in pole vault. And Station Camp girls track team just won the 4x100 relay state championship. So we have a number of other kids from some of our other high schools. What's that? Hendersonville won 3-1 in soccer after a stunning upset over Brentwood Saturday night that went to 7 PKs. Yeah. Double overtime, then 7 PKs. That's a crazy game. If you've ever been to one of those games that goes to PKs, it's insanely intense. So congratulations to our teams. We also had Beach High School baseball is in the state. They lost today. White House played Dyer. What's that?
They lost to the number 1 team.
Lost to the number 1 team in the state. It's double elimination on baseball. So we've got Beach High School, White House High School, first time since I think 2010 in the state, and then Station Camp High School, first time in the state for baseball ever. Liberty Creek softball's in the state tournament. Yeah, I think they probably won. They've got a really good shot of winning the state in softball, as does Station Camp's boys. So we're proud of all of our Sumner County teams. Can't wait to see how they do this week. Mr. Mike Brown, finishing up his time as county athletic director, is really earning his keep this last week of the school year. So we're thankful for him. I also want to give a huge shout out before we jump into budget to all of our high schools. If you had the opportunity to go to graduations Thursday through Saturday, I made 6. I went to White House, HHS, Portland, Middle College, Ball State, Beach, and then Merrill Hyde. I stayed at Beach until right as they were walking on, then I drove over to Merrill Hyde. I love the graduations because they capture so much of the community. I think, and I'm proud our central office team. We had someone at every graduation. I think Frankie went to 3. Amanda went to 1 big one for her son at Station Camp that we're celebrating. Full ride to Mississippi State and their pre-vet program, which is incredible. Katie went to 1 or 2. Katie went to 2, went to Gallatin and Gallatin and Evie Wilson. Yeah. Lisa went to Liberty Creek. Yeah, and then we had a number of others in the instruction. What's that? Yes, and Norma went to Welch. If you ever have the opportunity, Welch is for our kids that have graduated from Sumner County schools that are in the next stage job skills training. We're proud. We're very, very proud of those kids. So very proud of our team. We got to see Brad Schreiner retire for the 2nd time after 40 years in Sumner County schools. She opened Merrill Hyde, started Merrill Hyde, and then started Middle College. And Middle College had their first student to earn a full ride to Vanderbilt this year. They've had a number of other very successful grads. Probably the most successful thing I've done in the last month. If you've ever been around Brad Schreiner, you know that you don't slip anything past Brad. And she had banned anybody from honoring her at graduation, and I snuck a dozen roses past her and was able to surprise her at the graduation because if you've ever been around Brad, she's really an amazing leader, amazing principal, and so innovative. You know, created 2 of the top programs in the country if you look at Merrill Hyde Magnet School. Also, let me say this, because there's been some ink about Merrill Hyde Magnet School not making the U.S. News and World Report rankings this year. That's because the state of Tennessee did not share the data in a convenient way for U.S. News and World Report to access it. So Merrill Hyde remains one of the top schools in the country, and they'll be back up there whenever. I think it was just a 1-year run during COVID that they restricted the data, but hopefully when that data is released like it had been prior to that, Merrill Hyde will be back up in that publication. But I wanted to correct that because, you know, if you've been to Merrill Hyde Magnet School or watched their graduation, they do truly amazing work. But I know many of you were at graduation, so thank you for going. It means a great deal to our kids and to the parents. And you know, the main thing is we came through graduation with no one injured, no one hurt, no bad decisions, which is always a key concern. A historic moment for Sumner County. Dr. Sawyers is the first African American principal at a high school to preside over graduation since desegregation. This is a big moment for Hendersonville High School, a big moment for Sumner County. And a big moment for Dr. Sawyers. If you've had any chance to spend time with Dr. Sawyers, he's a man of great integrity who has overcome tremendous obstacles in his life to become the man and leader that he is, and we're thankful to have him in Sumner County. All right, let's jump in and talk about budget. I'm not going to go through all the slides that we went through last time because there's no need for that, but I do want to hit some highlights. I've added a few slides based on questions that have come in, and then of course me and the team will be prepared to answer any questions that you might have tonight. I do want to hit this just for a second. Our guiding question: how are we providing the best pre-K through 12th grade education for all Sumner County students? That's guided every decision that we've made in this budget. If you remember, we talked a little about who our students were, or who our students are, excuse me, the diversity of our student population and how quickly it's changing, welcoming kids from all over the world, speaking different languages and meeting their needs. And if you've seen the ways that technology helps us, we put into the budget last year Language Line. I had a meeting with a parent who spoke Arabic, and I was going to try because I have a little hesitation to use a phone translation service where I don't know the person. So we have a guidance counselor in Sumner County that speaks Arabic, but the mom spoke a different dialect of Arabic that she couldn't speak, and we hopped on the Language Line. And when you're using a translation service and you speak for 45 seconds and they speak for 15, you're not really sure exactly what they're getting. But I probably said too many words anyway, so she summarized. But it was amazing if you think about how, for a parent that before couldn't access her child's education, to be able to do that. That's something that's in this budget that we don't really talk about a lot, but it makes schooling accessible for parents. Many times their kids can speak English, but if you want to make sure that a parent doesn't get the correct message, have a child interpret for their parent. They get a very, if the child is smart, they are definitely telling the story a little differently. Our Sumner County students, as you've seen tonight, learn and excel. And our students are ready. I think if you were at graduations, you saw how many, as we look at that state report card, I wish that there was a way to capture for high schools. To me, the mark of high school success is what are kids doing 5 years later. And when you see at each of our high schools several $1 million in accepted scholarships, and many times more of that in offered scholarships, along with we had the highest number of students who enlisted in the military. I believe we had 38 that enlisted in the military this year. Our kids are truly doing amazing things, and we celebrate that with them. So again, as we stated last week, our budget goals are to invest in preparing students for the future in their first career, provide opportunities to learn in real-world settings, increase compensation for all staff, address critical school facility needs, and continue to innovate as a school district. Again, I hit the budget process. If you have any questions, feel free to stop, but I'm going to go through some of these quickly. This is our increase in TISA and state education funds. I'm going next week on the 30th to the County Commission Budget Committee meeting. Mr. Long and Mr. Shope asked me to come over and discuss some of the market pressures that we're feeling, and also, for instance, like if you take Mr. Hyde's experience as director of schools and on the county commission, everything was about BEP. Everybody in the state still thinks about school funding in the lens of BEP, and BEP does not exist anymore. Commissioner Shope and I have had some long conversations about what TISA means. Basically, if you want to think about the way TISA works, TISA is almost like medical coding. You look at each student and you connect that student to the different needs that they have or the different outcomes that they have, and the funding is based on that. If you remember last time, let me jump down a little bit, this is a quick picture of it. TISA functions on the base, which is what you get per student based on your average daily attendance. The weights, and you can see those are different learning needs. The greater the needs that our student has, the higher the percentage that is funded, along with concentrated poverty and economically disadvantaged. I think I skipped over this last week, so let me jump down a little bit to the direct payments. If you see there, these are payments that we get for each student for K-3 literacy, for 4th grade supports, for CTE, and for ACT, but that ACT money is held at the state and they pay for the ACT directly from the state. Outcomes is based on performance. So schools that perform at higher levels earn money. We earned almost $3 million last year in outcome-based funding, in addition to what's on this. We won't receive that funding until Amanda, I think we got it around November, December. So if you look at your budget, what we did is we budgeted $2.5 million in outcome. because we won't know. We feel that it'll probably be a little bit higher, but I would rather, when we're projecting revenue that we don't specifically know yet, we want to project low rather than high until we get a couple of runs at TSA. We'll get a little bit better feel for how it works. I don't think, unless anybody wants me to walk back through it, this is how the state, they calculate our local contribution. And just know that from between March and April, when TASER increased the local contribution for Sumner County, we lost $1.23 million in revenue there. And then, of course, this is what was dog-eared by the legislature towards teacher salary increases, which, as you'll see a little bit later, were over double what our teacher pay raise is going to cost based on what was funded in TISA. All right, so, and let me say this before we jump in there. I don't think I did a good job of explaining this last time, and I want to hit this point just a second. I'm thankful for the legislature and the work that they've done. If you look over the last 4 or 5 years, they have increased funding to local school districts significantly. 2 years ago we got $31 million additional dollars, and then we're getting an additional $7.8 million this year.
So this number includes the $3.8 million to increase teacher wages?
Yes, sir. It's included, Mr. Lacey. It's oh shoot, wrong way. I'm sorry. It's included in this.
Gotcha.
They just say so basically the legislature noticed a couple of years ago, this was back when we were on BEP. BEP was crazy to tease out because they didn't fund all teachers. They funded 60% of teachers, but it wasn't 60% of all teachers. It was based on another formula. And so basically, if you were above the state minimum, you could use the money that they gave you for anything you wanted. And so some districts, they would put money in for teacher pay raises, and they would take that money and spend it on other things. So what they wrote into TISA was a requirement that when they specifically say money for teacher pay raises, you have to put at least that much into teacher pay raises. But I'm thankful for the work that our legislature's done. We're going to always want more. We're going to always push and advocate for more, because we know that every dollar that comes to us from the state is a dollar that we can put into programming and support for our students. All right, and likewise, I want to talk about, I went through this last week. I'll run through it really quickly now unless there's a question. Last year, we projected flat revenue growth from the county commission because it was the new county commission's first year to do a budget, and we weren't sure exactly how the pennies would change on the property tax. And I probably should have explained this. I don't know that I kept talking about pennies last time, and I realized that a lot of people don't know what a penny means. When the tax rate is set, they'll take the property valuation for all the properties in Sumner County, and they'll say, to generate the revenue that you made last year, this is the certified neutral tax rate. So, a penny then represents a certain amount of money. For the last 5 years, a penny has represented about $680,000. I don't know this. This is speculation on my part. I've asked several times. They're still working on this calculation at the assessor's office. I think a penny this time will be somewhere around $900,000, $920,000. If you take the average rate of appreciation of homes in Sumner County, you can do a little bit of math and get, it may be 880, it might be 920, but it should fall somewhere in there. So that gives you, for every penny of property tax, that's how much money that you generate per year. So for instance, currently our tax rate is set at 226. When it came in 2019, the certified neutral rate was, I believe, 186 or 189, something like that. And the previous commission set the tax rate higher. If you set the tax rate revenue neutral, there are some problems with that. I wish it's a hole in Tennessee law that I think is very unfair to county commissions, because when you set it that certified neutral rate, you're basically setting it at last year's revenue, so you're losing inflation right off the bat. You're losing at least a penny from appeals, because I can assure you, when everybody opened those tax assessments, the first thing they wanted to do was call and say, there's no way my house is worth that. The reality is the fight should be on what the property tax rate is. You want your home to appraise as high a value as it can, because that's your principal investment. But anyway, there will be probably 5,000 appeals this year. So when they adjust those around, you'll lose about a penny of revenue this year just in getting that set right. There's a lot of motion in that. If you talk about a job, I would never in 10 million years want it would be tax assessor. I don't know how they get that done. Well, I take that back.
being on the committee that has to hear the appeals, that would be the worst job in Sumner County right now. But anyway, long story short, you know, if we come in at the certified neutral rate, just understand that that puts us short of any inflation, cost of living, market adjustment, anything like that. But that's, you know, that's the way the law, if you're on the county commission and you set it above that certified tax rate, people put little signs up all along the county to remind everybody that you raised the taxes. But it's, you know, it's public discourse. That's what part of being on the county commission is you set the tax rate and you live with the consequences, whether you set it at the revenue neutral rate or whether I wish there was a state law, because it would take a lot of pressure off county commissions that would allow some increase for inflation or cost of living or something, because it would help county commissions and take that lift of having to feel like you raise taxes. But that's not our decision. I just want to be really fair, because I know when everybody's property tax valuation came out, everybody thought they were getting a tax increase. I want to be really clear, that does not mean a tax increase. That's just what your property's worth. Setting the tax rate determines whether your taxes go up or down. So anyway, and I want to say, like, because we projected flat revenue last year and the commission kept our funding at the same level as previous years, we picked up an extra $7.7 million from all the different county revenues that we didn't budget. So that went into our fund balance. All right, this year, the pennies are going to change from last year. From what my understanding is, the pennies may go down, but the sales tax percentage that we're going to go up. But I've gotten really strong assurances that this $7.5 million is pretty solid. I'll know for sure. I believe they vote on this next week on the 30th to set all this. So they're getting really close. The budget committee on the county commission side has a tremendous amount of work, because you know the pressures that we're feeling here on the school board. Every county department is feeling the same market adjustment pressure, and everybody's asking for the same type things. So when you've done that budget, another thankless job in the county is being budget chair on the county commission. You lose all friends when you're the budget chair on the county commission. It's a tremendous amount of work, and I'm thankful that there's revenue there to the tune of $7.5 million. So as Ms. Brown and I and all the departments and everything sat down and tried to work, we tried to produce a budget that we could function off of this level of revenue. Because the best thing for the school system, and I want to say this as we deliberate, we can add a whole bunch of stuff to this budget, and we can get it way out of whack, and it is totally within your constitutionally elected authority to do that and send it to the commission. I don't think if you go above what we put here that there's any chance that it passes. I've talked to a lot of commissioners, and you know, the revenue is going to be about what it is. So I think we have to be really cautious and try to work within the constraints that we have and try to get a budget, because you know, like we've got football stadiums to build, we've got compensation to pay, and I think if we can take this big bite off of compensation, we'll be able to hire people. We don't want to be in a position where we're trying to hire teachers and not know what we're paying, not know what we're paying them, not know what we're paying classified staff, or know that they may not see those raises until September if we get into a protracted battle with the county commission. I would say I've seen a lot of movement, and I think that I've had really positive interactions with the budget committee. I've had really positive interactions lately with the education committee and with a number of commissioners. So this is where I think the revenue is right now.
Okay. Yeah, I talked to Commissioner Schoaf today. He mentioned on top of that another $1 million for capital that they're considering. Has he said anything to you about that?
He did. I didn't know if it was official yet. I didn't want to. I didn't want to let the cat out of the bag, but.
Well, I don't know.
I wanted it to be his. But I'm glad you said it.
Okay. Well, I know they're trying to work that out, so I thought I'd share that.
Yes. And thank you, Mr. Dean. I just didn't know. You know, I try to honor when I'm having a conversation with somebody, like to let them roll that out. But if you had that conversation, I'm sure that he's good with it. But yes, they've mentioned $7.5 million plus $1 million in capital.
Yeah. So that would be nice, you know, and they haven't voted on it yet, but I think there's strong support for that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think so too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to see if be able
Yes,
to
sir.
share that, so.
Yes, sir.
Mr. King, Mr. Lacy?
On the 2022-23, that 7.7 million, is that going to be going towards our maintenance of effort, or is that a one-time fund?
No, the way maintenance of effort works is once we receive it and budget it, then it goes into maintenance of effort. So like Mr. King mentioned 1 million in capital, that will not go towards maintenance of effort because that comes in. Capital does not count towards maintenance of effort, but funds like this that go in do.
So the 15 million next year, they've got to give it to us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. All right, so reserve funds utilized to balance our budget, 26.3 million. Okay, and then expenditures, we went through this last week again. The biggest thing, and I want to explain this just a little bit and unpack it because I know a lot of times, just to understand that when you're in education, the way our service is delivered is by a teacher and support staff in classrooms. So the personnel part is always going to be the biggest expenditure that you have in a school system budget. But I believe, you'd have to go back and look, I want to say like in 2012, 13, 14, this expenditure line for personnel was around 89%. It was high. I can't say that for sure. I just remember a graph like this at one point back in the old days about budget expenditures. So, we're in a little bit better position, but of course, gas also costs 3 times what it cost back then too. So some of that's why that's gone up. Okay, and then again, our biggest year-over-year increase from current year to next year is the salary benefits, the compensation investment that we're making. I received a number of Title I questions, and I realized that I did not really talk a lot about Title I other than to say that the budget had been cut. And we've heard some comments tonight about Title I. So let me walk through a little bit about Title I, and I want to share a couple things about it. And then the best part is Ms. Skinner is here now, and she's an expert on all things title, way more than I am, so she'll be able to jump in and help too. So our funding allocation decreased by $394,119. Title I allocations are federal dollars distributed by the Tennessee Department of Education according to a funding formula. The decrease in funding was offset in the schools by unfilled positions, shifting of positions, and some employees who were not returning. So basically the way that a title budget works is Ms. Skinner, feel free to jump in at any time, okay? So title schools receive an allocation. So you take your smallest title school and you set an allocation there, and then it spirals up. So if you set that allocation like this year with Oakmont, it was our smallest title school, if you set that $1, then you have to give Venus Stewart, our highest poverty school, you have to give them more. But then you also have to account for Venus Stewart has maybe 450 students that are economically disadvantaged, 500 economically disadvantaged students. So when you set that amount, you have to multiply that. So your larger title schools, Venus Stewart, Guild, Benny Bills, Portland Gateview, receive a significant amount more of title funding than your smaller ones, Clyde Riggs, Oakmont, our smaller elementary schools, Lakeside Park. So Millersville would be the classic example. That's a small title school with a high poverty rate that gets significantly less money than Venus Stewart, because even though they have a similar poverty rate, there are a lot fewer students at that school. So the way that that title budgeting works is historically principals have had a significant amount of autonomy in how they utilize those title funds. But it's based on communication with the principal, the teachers, the staff, families in the community, businesses. Now Dr. Bowman's team, formerly Ms. Skinner's team, works with them. They have meetings where they address the stakeholders in the community. A certain percentage of that title budget by law has to go towards family engagement. One of the things that we really shifted a couple years ago when Ms. Skinner took over federal programs was really emphasizing parent engagement and parent empowerment. For a long time in Sumner County, we believed that we accepted a myth that kids of title parents weren't involved in their kids' education. The reality is that's fundamentally not true. It's that you have to do events at times where they can attend because a lot of times they're working or they don't have transportation for the whole family, or they don't have childcare. What we have seen routinely now is events at Venus Stewart or Guild or Portland Gateview or Millersville or anywhere. We see hundreds of kids and their parents involved in those activities because we've worked really hard at the school level to get them involved. So the school gets a certain title allocation, and they can determine how to use that allocation to best meet the needs of their school. The rule for title is it has to supplement, not supplant. So when we set positions around the county, we use ratios. So we do that for teachers, we do that for assistant principals, we do that for guidance counselors, we do that for office help. We have to submit a report to the state called a comparability report, and we have to show that there's a reason, if we're out of alignment, why we're doing that. All right, but title, if it goes beyond, if it supplements that, so I'll give you a couple of examples. Benny Bills, for instance, is one of 3 schools that has a behavioral specialist that they hire out of their title funds. We don't allocate a behavior specialist to individual schools out of the GP budget. So Benny Bills can use some of their title funding to fund a behavioral specialist. Guild also has a behavioral specialist. For a long time, Venus Stewart and Guild split a behavioral specialist. Vena decided to go with an additional lead educator. Again, all things that supplement, not supplant. Next year, Vena has chosen to not have a second lead educator. They combined a couple of other positions, and they're adding an assistant principal. Right? They didn't meet the ratio that we set for an additional assistant principal, but they utilized their title money because they said it's more important to have an additional assistant principal than it is a lead educator or a behavior specialist. So our schools determine that in their meetings with Dr. Bowman and his team, Ms. Skinner, but also in meetings at their school level with their teachers, with their staff. Another thing is that we were able, Oakmont will no longer be a title school after this year. If you've noticed, Oakmont, the homes around Oakmont are now selling for $600,000 to $900,000, and the community of Oakmont is changing very rapidly. There are still, if you remember last week, I said that in this county we are getting more affluent and poorer at the same time. There are still plenty of pockets of poverty in the Oakmont community, but their overall percentage of students that are economically disadvantaged has dropped each year for the last couple of years, and we can no longer serve them as a title. One of the things that we did is one of their personnel, we were able to shift into a GP role so that they did not lose the person, that we were able to keep. Our goal, as we said from the start, was to invest in people. So the other positions, we had a lot of unfilled positions, obviously, that we've seen across the board in a lot of different areas, in title schools especially. And then we had, we shifted some positions around, combined positions, and then we had some employees that were not returning. So that's the way we were able to offset. So there were no there were very few positions that were just cut where there was a person in them. Normally we were able to absorb them into a different job. There were a few that were either non-rehires or were moving on to do something different, and so those positions were already really kind of accounted for in the budget. All right, I had some questions about Title I class sizes, and I wanted to go through. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
So going back to that, twofold, is there any way that we can supplement that loss of funding from the state out of our budget? And do our title schools have what they need? I know these are mid-filled positions, but do we need to fill the positions with our budget? Would that be helpful to those schools?
It gets into a weird math because you get into that supplement, not supplant. So if you went in and started adding, if you went in and we added behavioral specialists, for instance, you would have to add them at all title schools because if you do it out of GP, right? Because then it would make the ones at Venus Stewart and Ms. Skinner, do you want to?
Yeah. So if you add something from a GP budget, then it's no longer in addition. So when you think of title funds, it's in addition to what the district already provides.
Right. I think that gives us an opportunity. If we're not getting the funding from the state, then we also don't have to abide by state rules with how that funding is used. We see the need at the school and we fund it. That's what I'm saying out of our GP. Can we not do that?
I don't know if I understand your question. I'm sorry.
I think I do, but I think the question is we're not out from under state rules because we're not under title, which requires us to follow federal rules. State rules, we still have state rules on comparability. So like if we funded positions that don't meet the criteria that we use for everything else, then we're out of compliance. Now, what the punishment of that is uncertain, but we do, Ms. Brown may be able to speak to that.
Yeah, I've had a question from a federal auditor before about why we had a 0.5 library clerk at a school. I mean, those are the very specific questions we get asked. And it was because at one point in time, years before, they qualified for that based on their enrollment, and that enrollment had dropped that year. And so technically that 0.5 library clerk, wasn't within the ratio, but we didn't let that person go because they had a drop of 5 students. But those are the type of questions we have to answer to. And so what happens is if you go in and you take general purpose funds and you pay for all that stuff that have been additional for title, it puts you in a situation with the other title schools where it's not addition anymore. You are supplanting. It's not a supplement anymore because you're now providing that level of support there. So you would have to, it compounds that. Does that make sense?
No, I mean, that makes sense. I'm just, we had a wonderful speaker talk about Bennyville's having loss of learning because of disruptions. And so I'm thinking, if we've lost state funding for Title I, but Bennyville, say, needs 2 behavioral specialists instead of 1, is there not a way we can circumvent that and just fund it ourselves to make sure that those kids are getting the education they need?
Yeah. I think, let me come back to your question, Mr. Cramp, it's okay, because I want to run through a couple of things. And I will say this, I think some of the ways, because title schools are not the only ones with behavior problems, especially like this is some of the things that we've seen since the pandemic are a rapid increase in chronic illness, type 1 diabetes, Crohn's disease, other inflammatory diseases, heart conditions. We're also seeing a huge increase in student socialization and behavior. You don't have to go to a title school to find behavioral issues that are disruptive to the school. One of the steps that we've taken, we started actually 2 years ago, Ms. Katie Brown's team, along with the instruction department, began working 2 years ago on implementing something called TCIS district-wide. Now, a lot of times if you hear TCIS, this is not the restraint version of TCIS. There's a level below that which talks about like what we want is a common language district-wide among teachers so that if a child is escalating, how do we de-escalate them? And where we're all speaking the same language, because right now we have a bunch of different ways, because like the problem emerges and everybody trying to do the best they can tries to find a way to help children. The problem with that is that it's not consistent because nobody's trained on it. So we trained 117 of our administrators and leaders last summer on TCIS, which is basically de-escalation strategies to benefit classroom behavior and classroom management. We had to wait until this summer to roll it out to everybody because our trainers have to do a certain amount of trainings before they're fully licensed and we can use them. A 3-day of professional development that every Sumner County teacher will take this summer is on TCIS. We have trainings beginning right after school's out all the way until school starts to train every teacher in Sumner County on TCIS, and that will give us a common language across the district to be able to address student needs. Now, I think that there are a lot of things. This isn't really new. I know Ms. Dam and I have been talking about kindergarten conversations since at least, Ms. Dam was probably talking about it, I would presume she was talking about before I got up here, but at least since 2018, we've had these conversations. In fact, the origin really of Sumner Ready was when Ms. Skinner and I were talking to principals and the number of elementary principals that talked about how they had 3 to 5 kindergartners that disrupted all of kindergarten. And it's like, we've got to go. So I don't know, Mr. Graham, your question, I don't know that there's a silver bullet. Like, I don't think more behavioral interventionalists necessarily gets at the root of a problem. I think we've got to start community awareness and education. You saw last week when we were talking about SPED numbers, the number of kids that are being identified for special ed services is increasing dramatically. That will help some, because some of the things we find with kindergarten is kids are coming in and they haven't received those early intervention services, and we're having to do that, we're having to qualify them and certify them that first 9 weeks of kindergarten. And it's a huge problem. It's a problem in every school district across the nation. Everybody's trying to figure out how you do this. I think that we're starting to get the right steps in place. You know, we have 2 classroom management specialists at the district office that go out, and they're used constantly at the school level. We have Ms. Dam's team has social workers and other behavioral experts that go out and work. Our attendance team back here with Ms. Webster, they do a lot of work. I think you've seen, I would say, another thing is I think we've made a very rapid shift from, you know, I would say 5 years ago, maybe, or I'd say when I was a principal, 2017, 18. If you talked about doing, or if you talked about ways of like, hey, instead of like us just suspending this kid, let's talk to him and see what's going on. If you look at White House High School's discipline data, for instance, you will see like they run the first tier of all their discipline through guidance. And then they use teachers to take care of things, because, you know, in a high school, the number one thing of discipline in a high school is ID badges and tardies and cell phones, right? Like, you don't need to eat up administrator time to say, where's your badge? Get a duplicate badge, get a substitute badge, you know, whatever. That frees the counselors up, and a lot of times what we're finding is something happened at home. A kid's hungry. They have a need, and we're able to meet that need, and then that kid not escalate to miss for suspension. Those conversations we got to start having with families when they're, you know, I think Ms. Skinner's team, we haven't shared it publicly yet, but they're working on a report card that lays out for kindergartners very clear language, not your child is struggling with standard RL 3.1824, right? But saying your child doesn't, or your child has mastered their vowels. But in that are certain, like beyond just the academic stuff, is you know, behavioral or professional skills, like can your child play in a group of 3 other kids? And what we wanted to do is use very simple jargon-free language so that there's an issue. It creates a way for parents and teachers to communicate in ways that's not intimidating or overwhelming to parents, but allows them to have a real conversation. So we're hopeful with the TCIS training for all teachers. Our kindergarten teachers are going through our pre-K and kindergarten teachers are going through some additional training or some slightly different focus training to get at the specific needs that we're seeing each year when kindergartners come in. So I think that's the first step in Scrum. I think what adding positions needs some study to figure out exactly what that would be. Because if you're talking about things that are if we're talking about things that are in the mental health profession, they're really hard to find. We could create the positions and never fill them because they're very difficult to find. And we already have, you know, we already have behavioral specialists in a volume to help with. What we need to do is bring down the number of kids that are escalated that don't need long-term assistance, so that it frees up our resources to address the kids that do need that first 9 weeks of kindergarten to adjust to get certified into SPED. And it's not just kindergartners, it's also 3rd graders and others, but a lot of that is just, it's having, you know, having the ability to bring that down in the classroom and equip teachers with the skills, and sometimes it is an extra set of hands. So if we had an unlimited budget, I would say absolutely, let's do it. Let's add lots of staff. Let's add an assistant principal in every elementary school. Let's add additional assistant principals. Let's add behavioral folks. But, you know, I think where we are now, we've taken some steps in the intermediate steps to address a lot of that.
Graham, I think we're still on your question.
Yeah, kind of just one quick follow-up question.
Sure.
Can you give a quick example of the positions that we're losing and not filling when we lost the 394,000?
Yeah, we had a lot of unfilled teaching assistant positions or parapros, and usually every year in a title school, you'll see them say, like, used to title schools were staffed with a bunch of parapros. That started probably 4 or 5 years ago. They started shrinking those into fewer parapros and more like Title I teachers or lead educators or things like that. So most of the positions that were dropped as a result of that were unfilled parapro or teaching assistant positions.
Mr. King.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I don't know if I heard you correctly. Did you say that Venus Stewart Elementary is using title funds to fund an assistant principal position?
Yes.
They are. So that's not So that's not in our budget. That's not coming out of our budget. That's coming out of Title I.
I corrected that on the slide. I had it in there as a GP last time, and I realized after the meeting that I was wrong, so it was out of title, so I corrected it on the slide. And, you know, and I think that, you know, this is where you see the fluidity that comes from. There's always a question of what's the right amount of balance from the district saying this is what we need to do at the school level versus the schools having the autonomy to do. And our title schools, we've always, especially our larger ones that have substantial budgets, always given them a lot of autonomy. I know that Dr. Vincent at Benny Bills has reached out to Dr. Bowman and Ms. Skinner to see about, can we recraft our budget to add an assistant principal just like Mina did. And that's certainly a possibility.
Just another question. Can we add positions in the middle of the year, like a assistant principal or classroom teachers? We can add those as we're going along, as needed. Is that
out of title or out of GP?
Out of GP.
Yes. Okay. You can do it out of both, but title would require you would have to go in. If you go on ePlan, which is the system that they use to track and monitor the money, you would have to go in, change the narrative to add that in, change all the budgeting, and then submit it to the state for approval because they have to make sure it meets all the state and federal rules. But we do that constantly. They're constantly, but in terms of GP, it's much easier to do because if y'all vote on it and approve it, we can add it.
Mr. Lacey.
Did we lose any reading interventionists?
Our reading,
am I saying it correctly?
You are, yeah. Our reading interventionists, so we have part-time reading interventionists at every school that's covered out of GP. We have not cut any of those. We've added hours consistently over the last few years to try to get everybody to 4 or 5 hours based on the size of the school. So the reading interventionists are there. I don't know, I don't know off the top of my head because some title schools have hired full-time reading interventionists, and then a lot of times what happens is the person that was doing it leaves and they don't think they'll be able to fill it, so they shift it into something else.
So we haven't unfilled, or
yes,
we didn't come back, or we didn't have the position filled. Did we lose any of those?
The position's still there even if it's unfilled. So if someone interviews and takes that position,
gotcha.
Yeah, we used to have, Mr. Lacey, we used to have a lot of people. We've tried to raise the pay on reading interventionists the last couple of years because we used to have a lot of people that would retire from teaching and they would take a part-time reading interventionist job. Now that we have one of the benefits of the House bill has been a lot of those teachers are staying in teaching and they're continuing to teach. The downside of it is it's cut down into our pool of people that take reading intervention jobs. You know, I'm hopeful. We have stayed away, like we have kept those reading intervention positions as a certified position that require a teaching license because we think that's best for kids. You know, we're hopeful. We've been working with Vol State on some to partner with our teaching as. Let me come back to that in a minute. I want to announce that a little bit, but yeah. Okay. All right. Let me give you an example of what we're looking at. When we go through, like when we do our budget meetings with principals, we go through what their enrollment looks like the next year. So we had some questions about where we cut academic positions from title schools. So first I'll give you this is Benny Bill's projected enrollment next year. All right, so you can see that we did cut 3 teaching positions from last year to this year. They were unfilled this year. And so if you look at the averages, this is the projected enrollments for next year. And so, you know, these are all really good. Better than probably the district average. We generally try to keep title schools at a lower classroom enrollment than regular, because it is different to teach at Liberty Creek or Station Camp than it is at Benny Bills or Vena. There are different needs of the students, so we try to keep those a little bit lower. Now, what we also do, if you remember, in August we spend the first 2 weeks, because the hard thing is, like, if you'll notice, the kindergarten and first grade numbers are the same. That's because we try to just base it initially. We've done kindergarten registration, but in schools that are higher poverty and more mobile, we don't get a lot of the kindergartners that register until the start of the school year. So what we do is we project historically where we think they've been, which is usually right around where they were the previous year. But then we check the first 3 weeks of school. Each week we check actual enrollment, because what happens is if people that move here from the north or the west where school starts after Labor Day historically, they don't think about coming to school until late August or September when they first move in. Or if somebody moves from here to there, they don't do their student records until around Labor Day. So a lot of times at the start, we'll have kids that are, we can't take a child off our roll until we receive a transfer form from another school. So there's a little bit of flux. So what we do is we count the first 2 or 3 weeks of school, we count repeatedly the number of actual kids you have in the building. And so what we do then is we look at those classroom ratios. So like let's say that Benny Bills right now is projected with an enrollment of 87 in kindergarten. They could very possibly come in with 106. They could come in with 66. What we do is we look, and sometimes like we've had a couple instances where, I mean, one year we had a school that historically had been 95 kindergartners every year, and they came in at 65. So we had to move a teaching position because we were going to have kindergarten classes that were tiny. And we had need where there were larger classes somewhere else. So rather than hire new, we try not to shift teachers from the school where they teach. Only very rare. I think we've done it maybe twice since I've been up here. But what we will do is, like, let's say that number from Benny Bills comes in at 106 instead of 87. We would add the requisite number of teaching positions. Mr. King, to your question, by law, we have to bring that classroom enrollment down. And so we would add, now what we will do sometimes is, school enrollments are weird. Sometimes you'll see, especially like in your smaller schools, you'll see it'll be like 75, 75, 75, 106. There's one year where it's big, and so what happens typically is you add an extra teacher, and then one teacher moves with that class, because you can't leave them and have 31 in third grade but 9 in second grade. So that's kind of the way the enrollment works. So that Guild is the other title school that we cut 3 teaching positions from, but you can see, 4th and 5th grade, we want them under 25, under a 20 average on K3. So you can see Guild is still, we like, especially in title schools, we like a smaller kindergarten number. Guild and Benny Bills have been coming in a little bit lower in kindergarten in the last couple of years, especially Guild. Now, I think that Guild will start to see increase. I think some of that is a lot of the building, the community is changing over there. If you look, a lot of the new developments and everything out at Airport Road and everything are coming online, and you'll start to see a little bit more growth. Guild has decreased, I want to say like 100, 150 students over the last couple of years. Vena has stayed about the same. What's that? Yeah, yeah, and that happens. So there's just some weird. I mean, this is a weird time in terms of enrollment patterns, because you have, like, we cut a teacher at Jack Anderson this year and added a teacher at Lakeside Park. I promise you that's never happened before. We've added teachers at Jack Anderson every year, probably since Jack Anderson opened. So I want to give you just an idea of, this is kind of where we are. There's a tremendous amount of support. Like Benny Bills this year, we identified that there were some issues and problems, and Ms. Skinner and Ms. Dam and their teams have spent significant amounts of time in the school. And Dr. Bowman's staff has been over there at least 2 days a week. Ms. Dam's staff has been there almost constantly, and then additional coordinators and supervisors. Ms. Hessen, her coordinators, Ms. Wilkinson, that's a title coordinator. They've been over there quite frequently to assist. So whenever, we've been able to, whenever we identify a need, we've been able to shift resources to address it. Okay.
These don't include any title, what the numbers are not any title staff.
Right. Yeah, this does not include the title staff. So for instance, Benny Bills currently has a behavioral specialist, 2 full-time reading interventionists, and 2 parapros. Okay. So again, like we talked about this last week, $26 million from our to balance our operating budget, and $29 million to balance our capital budget. Leaving us with what we estimate to be, we hope this is so conservative that it'll be larger, right around $5 million when we start. Okay. I'm going to run through some of this because we covered this last week. I think our class of 2024 scholarships will be larger than $64 million based on what I heard at graduations. We had a really good year for scholarships this year. It's really exciting. All right, I want to talk about something a decision that we made that went into effect today. You remember last week I talked about how can we take the walls off schools? And sometimes that requires tough business decisions and transitions. So I want to talk, one of the things that we've studied this year of how we take the walls off the schools and how do we best meet the needs of schools. We've operated E.B. Wilson for many years. It started as a school for students that were way behind on credits, students that had children. We were meeting with Paige Brown a week or two ago, and she was talking about when Pat was principal at E.B. Wilson, they would rotate. They had about six young mothers finishing their high school diploma, and they would rotate out 5 in the class and 1 in the hallway to watch the 5 children in their strollers. And at that time, we had the ability to transport. At that time, it was at Ellis Middle School. Eventually, we moved it over here to this campus. But the biggest problem that we've always had is kids from Gallatin can't take advantage of E.B. Wilson because we don't have transportation. Not to mention, you're talking about a 35-minute drive, 40-minute drive from White House or Westmoreland or Portland. It's always limited our enrollment, and we've seen that enrollment, decrease for the number of kids that are actually on campus. We've also seen an increase in need on our school campuses for students that can. So I think you'll see an evolution of this program that we would propose is that we shift the delivery of the services to 2 places. One, completely virtual, right? We have students that go on homebound leave. We have students with profound medical needs. We have students that sometimes just need 6 months to be virtual, and then they'll come back to their high school and they'll be fine. So we want to keep the virtual piece and run it from the district office. Ms. Sawyer and her team do a tremendous job of meeting our students' needs for our students that need 100% virtual. Ms. Herron and her team, her homebound team can work. It gives them a lot more flexibility to be able to meet student needs. Edgenuity has a lot of flexibility. Edgenuity is created for that type of environment, but it's not the best for a kid that's getting a traditional high school diploma every day. So what we want to be able to do is shift the delivery of that services to our traditional high schools. So for instance, E.B. Wilson, the virtual part will still meet a student's need. If a student comes in, right, like sometimes we get a kid that comes here in foster care and they're significantly behind on credits. We can get them to 22, but we can't get them to 26. So but if we try to ship them to E.B. Wilson, they don't have transportation to get here. If they can ride the bus to school and they can complete 22 credits, then we'll be able to graduate those students. Likewise, if a student is at one of our traditional high schools in this program and they need a personal finance class, they need a CTE class, it's been really hard to meet all the needs of our students to get them what they want. They might want to take a dual enrollment class. They might want to do one of our other programs, but then have the flexibility because of their life needs to do something completely different. We have the capacity to do that, and it saves us around $600,000. It's hard to say that $600,000 is well spent running a program that benefits so few students when we can meet the needs of those students plus many more. I would anticipate in 2 or 3 years we'll be able to serve the needs of probably 200, 300, 400 students a year. In addition to increasing the capacity of our high schools with credit recovery, unit recovery, and things like that.
Mr. Chairman, with that, I'm not sure that it's necessary, but in case it is necessary, and I would think if it's not necessary, I don't think it's a waste. I'd like to make a motion that we approve this, and I really like the idea, and I think it's innovative.
My recommendation would be to rename it Patricia Brown Virtual Academy. I think, Mr. Johnson, help me, we have to mention it tonight and then vote on it in the next meeting. So we can, I think we can count that as it being mentioned, and then we can vote on it at the next meeting.
Technically, this is a program, not a building, so I'm not real sure the board. I think they could probably approve it by acclamation just as easy.
Okay.
We can vote on it.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
So what are we doing?
We'll vote on the next meeting, maybe.
Okay,
We'll vote on it in June. I think give everybody a little bit of time to think about it would be good.
okay. Ms. Anderson, you got moved?
I know one of the draws for some students with the E.B. Wilson program is specifically for those students who maybe feel overwhelmed in their traditional high school. You know, E.B. has smaller class sizes and so forth. But then they may not do well necessarily with completely virtual. If we thought any of that, or you know, also with EB, kind of, you know, they had different sessions to meet different family needs or commitments, job, you know, necessities and so forth. Have any of those things been taken into consideration, or do we have plans for that? Will it?
The biggest limit on students being able to take advantage of this program has been transportation.
I 100% agree.
100%. The other thing is our traditional high schools are much better equipped to meet the needs of students. So, for instance, if you're completing coursework that's not 100% virtual, if you're going to a school and you struggle with anxiety or things like that, you have the opportunity to be in a computer lab. Or with iPads, you know, like if a student has profound anxiety, we would be able to put them, like if you go to any of our libraries, there are, you know, private little areas, there's quiet places, things like that. Our traditional schools are equipped to handle that with counselors, with social workers, with, we can deliver the full gamut of special education services and things like that all right there, but do it in a slightly, you know, without being bound by, you got to have 26 credits, you have to do this, you have to do this, which our other high school students are.
Will there also, though, be flexibility as far as hours? Because, you know, like right now, obviously, our schools are on block scheduling, and so, you know, they report to first block, second block.
Right.
I know with EB, it's kind of like they come in, what, 3-hour blocks so many times a week. Will that, you know, again be,
Yeah,
hey, you're only here from here to here, and
you will lose the late, you know, there won't be an early evening time, but I think what you can do is adjust that to a more virtual offering. So that's the trade-off, but I think if you weigh that against the fact that hundreds more kids can utilize it because of transportation versus trading off, like, you know, being able to come in until 5 or 6 o'clock, it's a...
But I'll agree with you 100% with transportation. I know there's been several families that I've talked to in the beach community that, you know, talk about just some struggles that their students having, or just different needs that they have. And I've said, hey, have you considered, you know, EB and for the, you know, especially for our students who don't drive, you know, for a parent and to be able to bring them to Gallatin and then come back and pick up and so forth. It has been a challenge. So I would 100% agree. I just don't want us to lose those students, like I said, that maybe. So I would prefer an approach of a not yet, or we may have to consider that in the future, as far as like an evening or a later afternoon type of offering, and maybe, you know, we do that, but maybe at not every school, you know, or something. I think to be looking at those compromises, because again, like I said, I don't want to lose those students, and I don't know what need might be there as we open it up.
Yeah, I don't think there are very many kids that were using that later option to begin with. I think, like, if there was a medical need or something, we would address that with homebound anyway. We'll still have homebound services. So if we had someone that needed, you know, something where they needed services from 4 to 6, we'll probably be able to figure that out on a case-by-case basis. I think my concern about saying we're going to do a later time at certain schools is then we're replicating the problem that we had with the original, which is how are we going to get them there? If I'm in Westmoreland and the later is in Portland, they may not be able to get there. But I think we can leverage the technology to help meet those needs. I mean, we could always pay, you know, through homebound. And there's, like, if we had a kid that needed something between 4 and 6 p.m., we could cover that in a one-off kind of contract type setting, just like we do now with homebound teachers. I think that's I think that there's another flexibility that we haven't really thought about. Our sending kids to R.T. Fisher is rather blunt right now. I think that we send a lot of kids in high school, especially that are willful and persistent. Willful and persistent means that they show up every day, they do almost nothing that you ask them to do. So they wind up at R.T. Fisher where we increase the pressure to get them to things that they already don't want to do. I think a program like this, there may be a way, because a lot of times those kids want to work and they're not interested and they're not engaged in a traditional 5-day-a-week, 7.5-hour school day, 8-hour school day. They want some flexibility. I think that we would be able, it would give our discipline hearing panels the opportunity to sit down and say, what's the best placement for kids? And this may be one of those things. Like right now what happens is that's not really an option for the discipline panel. So they make a decision and then they appeal it to me, and then I try to resolve that if it's better for the kid. But it would be better on the front end if we could say, look, if you can come to school 2 days a week and finish this class, we can put you on virtual the other 3 days and you can work and you can do this at your leisure. We can come up with some, gives us a tremendous amount of flexibility to meet the needs of a whole lot of kids, instead of the numbers that can make it here and have transportation.
Right, I agree with that. There's been several students that I know personally that I think would have benefited from the programs at EB and the flexibility and so forth. And transportation was definitely an issue on that. I said, as we transition it back to our main campuses, maybe look at it kind of like Play-Doh and not say, hey, this is, to take the needs of the students in, and maybe it's even a year over year of like, kind of how we talk about classrooms and how it shifts, and you have to add a teacher or bump them or whatever, that depending upon what the needs of the students are that are applying for that program, that we also may have to mold and shape, that it's not rigid, because I think a program like that, there will have to be some very set boundaries, but I think it's also something that we can always evaluate year over year to say, okay, this group of students, how do we best meet their needs? Is it 2 days a week? Is it 3 days a week? Maybe, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, we've come a long way. I mean, I'll be honest, let me give a huge shout out to Ms. Solier. Since she came on and became our virtual learning coordinator, I mean, basically, she pretty much has met with most of the parents individually and the kids and set up a course of study for them. And she's trained all the lab coordinators at the high school. That makes this move possible because our lab coordinators are great. They're already doing this. And if you go to a school like Gallatin High School, they've got a graduation coach too. They're already doing this work. We've come a long way. I mean, if you remember, Mr. Graham and I may have butted heads a few times over Edgenuity in the past. I don't know if he remembers it.
Maybe why I'm sitting here.
That's right. But we've come a long way since then in learning. And the program itself has evolved. Like when we were doing this during COVID, we had the opportunity to give like real-time instructors and real-time tutoring, and at that time, like in 2020, it was fairly blunt, and this is what it is, and we were learning a lot then. So that program has evolved. I don't think it's as rigid as it was a couple years ago, and our lab coordinators have really expanded their knowledge and mastery, and that's a hat tip to Ms. Solier, because she's done a lot of training and work to get us there.
Right. Yeah, and I know a lot of work has been done to make Edgenuity more user-friendly for our students. I've talked to a lot of students that I know personally who attended E.B. Wilson. How many teachers are currently at E.B.?
There are 4 positions, 3 are filled.
Okay. Are we going to be able to absorb them into other schools?
They'll have to apply, but I mean, I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Okay, so it's just not an easy transfer?
You can't when you're reducing in force. You have to we're cutting the jobs, but I know Mr. Ott met with them today. I can't go a whole lot into HR stuff, but yeah. I don't think they'll have any trouble finding a teaching job. All right. And again, I just want to wrap up. I've had the opportunity to talk to the Brown family, and they are thrilled that this will be under consideration by the school board. All right.
Oh, I just want to say I love the name. Like I said, she was a sweet woman.
Mm-hmm. She was. Her page would say, maybe not as sweet as we all thought. All right, and then again, I can't remember if I shared this last week. I think Dr. Alexander told me this after the meeting. Next year, if we fill out our 75 slots for our teacher university, We will be the second largest teacher college in the state of Tennessee. Second only to the University of Tennessee, and Tennessee only beats us if you include their master's students. We will be the largest certifying body of undergraduate teachers in the state of Tennessee, which is really amazing, Amanda, to your team and work, and Craig, your team and the work that's gone into it. We're going to learn a lot. And then, so Mr. King, I clarified this, that Vol State, the Venus Stewart is Title I funded. The others are GP. I also wanted to clarify, not included in this budget, but coming down the pike, we had 2 schools last year that were classified as ATSI schools, Rucker Stewart and Portland East. So you get $75,000 per school. The determination of Ms. Skinner and her team is the best way to support those 2 schools is to have an experienced principal coach to work with, because, you know, like, I think, you know, Ms. Cruz shared earlier talking about Benny Bills Elementary, is if you have a behavior situation or anything else, it pulls a lot of the administrative resources. Well, what tends to happen is what gets sacrificed is the time for the administrator to work with teachers. So what we wanted to have is, Ms. Skinner can jump in here at any point, is to have a seasoned hand to go in and work alongside our principals at Rucker and Portland East. They're doing tremendous work. You know, if you've been in Rucker Stewart, Mr. Glasgow does a tremendous job, but there's one of him. And to have somebody that can go around and encourage, help build culture, help work with teachers, give an extra set of hands, but also, you know, build relationships with kids, and have as their primary job, not worrying about, you know, if class 16 is covered or anything like that, but to work specifically on improving the educational experience for our students. So that once the state approves our grant, we've done everything at this point. It should get approved in the next week or point. We're at the point now where it got rejected last time because we put sentences and not bullet points. I would argue that sentences communicate exactly like bullet points, but we're doing bullet points. So, and then Ms. Skinner's shifting some things around in the instruction department to create a supervisor that will catch our reading interventionists, all the data, and then TISA. Yeah, there's going to be, like, we all know that for next year we got to squeeze every penny out of TISA that we can. And again, I go back to the medical coding analogy. There's lots of stuff that we can do if we have somebody that can devote a chunk of their time to monitoring and learning how it works. Like, for instance, if we convert most of our personal finance classes to a CTE course instead of a general, you can code it 2 ways. You can make it a GP class and you can put 35 kids in there. You can make it a CTE class and you can put 25 in there. So most schools have just done it GP because it makes the most sense, right? Because it doesn't count towards one of the tracks. Now with TISA, if you make that a CTE class, you pick up about $31,000 per class. So, you know, this is a way for us to leverage what we're already doing to maximize the funds, because every one of these things we can find, we take the burden off the taxpayers of Sumner County. And we're going to have to invest a little bit in that. And also, like, you know, the other thing that I think you'll see is a big step that we've made this year is having, you know, Dr. Bowman, Dr. Causey, some of those on here that really know how to get data down to the level of the teacher and the student. And they've been able to work with that. We want to be able to expand that to make data more usable for our principals and teachers. Yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chair. What's the total cost of all the new positions? It wasn't in the PowerPoint.
Yeah, let me, Ms. Brown, do you know the total cost of the new positions?
All new positions?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there'd be 44 total new positions.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have it somewhere.
Okay, we'll come back and get you that number in just a minute, Ms. Lacy. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just going back to the previous slide, the 38 additional school positions, is that for White House Intermediate and You may have said that already. And then in Liberty Creek Middle, those 38 positions for that?
Yes, some. You know, the thing about White House Intermediate is it didn't have the same impact on teachers that it did like when we opened Liberty Creek Elementary, Middle, and High School a couple years ago, because we took a lot of teachers from H.B. Williams, because we already had that there in 3rd and 4th grade, and then 5th grade from White House Middle. So the teachers that were currently at that school, unless they moved to a different grade to stay at that school, they came over. So the new positions at White House Intermediate are like custodians, lead educator, nurse. Now we had to add some things like PE, librarian. So it is some of that, but not like, if you remember when we did Liberty Creek, I mean, it was like 112 positions or something like that. We had already caught that for Liberty Creek. And so Liberty Creek Middle was just growth. But now we did have growth positions at Liberty Creek Elementary and Liberty Creek Middle because the community has grown, and Liberty Creek High School.
We actually didn't have to add any teaching positions like K-5 or whatever the.
Yeah, 3-5.
3-5 for that, because we were able to reallocate from the other schools. But of course, like you said, the administration, TAs.
So in these additional, like the 25 additional certified teachers, they're spread out?
It's spread out, it's growth. So for instance, like we added 100-something students, an additional 100-something students at the end of last year to Liberty Creek, and we did Liberty Creek High School, and we didn't really add that many teaching positions. So then we did the lottery and added another 150 to 175 students at Liberty Creek again this year. So we had to add more positions at Liberty Creek High School because we caught like almost like 2 waves of the lottery. So there was more growth there. There was growth of about 250 instead of, you know, like a typical year we've tried to run 150 or so. I don't think we'll run the lottery again at Liberty Creek, definitely not to the scale that we've done this time. But we've had to add 4 teachers, I think, at Liberty Creek Elementary because of growth. We've had to add, really, I mean, Lakeside Park, some of the Portland schools. Yeah, I already said Liberty Creek High. So these are just kind of growth, but they're really more 1s and 2s.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a little over 5.8 million in new staffing.
And then just want to ask, based on our the student that we recognized tonight, the cellist, can you explain what's going on at Ellis with the orchestra program?
Yeah, to go back to what we were talking with Mr. Graham earlier, we have to run a comparability report. Ellis was significantly overstaffed based on their student population. They had more like related arts teachers than schools that had 200 or 300 more students. So when a teacher retired in related arts, we had to cut them a certain number of positions because it wasn't fair to the other. You know, if you're at Rucker at 800 and you've got the same number of related arts teachers as Ellis with 550, I think it's around 550, 560. But, you know, we were just overstaffed. So they had to make the decision at the school where that cut was going to come, and they decided to go, I believe, with musical theater.
They had a part-time theater teacher.
Can you turn your mic on, Ms. Brown?
If I remember correctly, they had a part-time theater teacher for a long time, and so they made that a full-time position, and I think the orchestra teacher was retiring.
Yeah.
And so that was something Mr. Cripps, we didn't decide which program, but Mr. Cripps looked at what his.
And I believe we've gotten in the short term, we've been able to cover that with a retired music educator. That's, you know, if you know Jeff Phillips, I mean, he's the best there is. So I think we've been able to try to keep the program, and it'll be something like, what I would hope we could do is if we have attrition, or, you know, if another related arts teacher at Ellis, you know, leaves or moves, we can look at bringing that back. I also don't think that they had the numbers in orchestra that they had, but I'm not 100% sure on that. The numbers for musical theater were significantly higher. All right. And again, you know, we went through a lot of this last week. All right, and then, you know, compensation. As I've been out at graduations, you know, the past week, I've talked a lot to teachers and staff and heard a lot about, you know, just the need for the compensation jump, and a lot of understanding that we're taking a huge bite. You know, but really they're feeling all these things. And let me run through this. I know that we had some questions about what's the difference. So if you look here, to go to $18 an hour for classified staff, it's $23 million. And if we go at 16 hours, it's 16 an hour, it's 12.8 million. So it's about 10. If we wanted to increase to 18, it's about 10. It would be an additional 10.2 million. Okay. So that's what, I mean, I think this is still, this gets us close to market. Teacher pay will not be close to market at 50 for very long, because next year everybody has to go to 50. We're going to have to go to 52, 53, 54, 55, something like that in the next couple of years. Like, what concerns me about compensation is, it does concern me about, like, I agree with one of our speakers earlier, you don't like paying recurring expenses out of reserve. But if we don't take a big bite, whenever we do take the bite, it's going to be so big, we're not going to be able to get there. And so I'm fearful of, if we don't take a big bite, where we'll be in terms of, I don't think if we don't take the bite, especially on classified, I don't think we're going to be in a position to continue to offer the services at the school that we've always done. We've done 42 principal evaluations over the last few weeks. And almost every principal that's come in has said, like, I've got to have help. You know, I can't continue to ask my teachers to clean their classroom or something like that. We've got to, you know, and these are principals that are the ones that are there at 6 o'clock in the morning and leave at 6 o'clock at night. Like, they're just threadbare. We're going to start losing great people because they're just worn out. And that's not like classified, or some of our classified employees that are picking up 2 additional jobs just to make the school function. Like, you can do that for a short time, but not forever. Now, I will say it's encouraging, just the rumors of compensation. I think I shared with one of you, Mr. Ott shared with us, we've got about 100 teaching positions open, about 100 classified positions open right now, which is really good. Some recent years, sometimes we've had upwards of 200 or 300 open. And the other thing from our principal evaluations is talking to principals. They're getting more applicants, and they feel like better applicants than the past couple of years. So that's been good. Okay, and then, you know, just to run through, this works out based on the number of days you work, you know, anywhere from 5,700 to 6,400 for a new 190-day employee or 200-day employee. And then increasing the teacher pay to $47,800. And again, special ed by $10,000. Doing a 1-month employee benefits holiday for employees that are on our insurance. I didn't have this last week, and I wanted to run through this. I had several questions about this, as what we were proposing about substitute pay. In January, we had a much bigger proposal, and we scaled it back, but we're still increasing. For a sub that does not have a college degree, we go from 75 to 100. For a degree but not certified, we go from 100 to 115. For a retired teacher or someone with an active teaching license, we go from 125 to 150. We're still increasing, just not at the big rate that we had mentioned before. So there's where you get the 28.945 million. That's a
question. To go back on subpage, I want to just clarify as well, where it says no degree, that would also be the same amount if somebody was subbing in a classified position.
What's that?
Where it's no degree at being $100 a day, that's the same amount that it would be if you were a classified position.
Yes. Okay.
Can I ask a quick question?
Mr. Mason.
I was just curious on the bus drivers. I know we just got them pretty close to where they need to be. What would their new pay be now? How much of an increase are they getting hourly?
It would be the $4, I think.
So it would go from.
Let me see. Yeah, Craig, Mr. Ott has the pay scales. And we're going to ask that we get these back at the end, because we kind of want to wait until we get this through the commission, because it's bad if you have pay scales out there that aren't approved.
So would they get like an hourly increase, or is it a percentage?
It'd be the hourly.
So what do bus drivers make now per hour starting out?
How much? 1926.
So they would get how much of a raise?
Go to about 23, 26, something like that.
They're range 25 on that scale.
So if you want a bus driver to be range 25, it should be around $4, Mr. Lacy, I think.
Ranges.
Thanks, sir. One second. All right.
If I remember correctly from January, are there any positions too that we're also changing the range on, or due to kind of the budget constraints, are we having to keep everybody at the same ranges this year?
Did we change the ranges on any employees? Here, you're on turn your mic on this, Brandon.
OTs and PTs will have a range adjustment for sure. Mr. Ott, there may be a couple more,
Yeah,
little
we're
adjustments.
looking at it right now, but as of right now, no. We're gonna have to look at, the new federal law passing, about exemption status.
Mr. Ott, you may want to step up to the microphone so it doesn't catch on the streaming.
Yeah, they recently passed a law in the federal government concerning exemption status, and they have changed the minimum amounts that people could make in order to be exempt. So those have drastically risen, and so we have some positions now that don't meet the exemption status. Like I said before in my comp study, that we have to prove that you have to be exempt rather than non-exempt. So everybody's non-exempt by statute unless you can prove that they're exempt employees, meaning they meet the requirements. And part of those requirements is a minimum salary floor, if you want to call it. And so they've raised that floor, saying so anybody who's below that floor has to be non-exempt. So we have to look at some of those positions.
Okay, so I would want to say, again, this is not off the top of my head, so I could be wrong. Give me grace on that. But like maybe like our bus mechanics or something like that, even we were looking at changing that.
Yeah, I think we looked at that initially. I think with the change in the wages and just the amount of increase, we were going to be able to attract more bus mechanics. If need be, we may have to go back and revisit that. I do have a list of possible changes, but it was dependent. Let me just say this: it was dependent on where we landed with the rate change.
Okay, and then what about, we had discussed about new hires and about how they then were calculated within the step and range. Is that though?
Yeah, we're moving forward with that.
We are moving forward with that?
We are.
Okay.
So there'll be those highly skilled positions and then the regular positions.
We used to lose out on a lot of really qualified employees because they would come in with 14 years experience and we had to start them at like year 3.
That will greatly help our hiring in both maintenance and bus mechanics.
All right, I think everything else we've pretty much been through. Capital, and then just our budget goals. If y'all have any questions?
Further questions before we move on? Seeing none. We'll get back to our agenda. Yes, are you through, Dr. Langford?
Yes, sir.
Okay. As soon as we get our agenda back, we'll move forward. Next item on the agenda is new business. discussion and interaction regarding bids for middle school band instrument purchases. Motion approved by Ms. Andrews, second by Mr. King. I believe it, Mr. King. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr. Brewer, if I can say one word, I've had, I think, every middle school band director and parents and high school band directors, everybody have reached out for me to express to y'all their gratitude. This is going to be hugely beneficial to our middle school band programs, and they've been very appreciative and very excited. It was like Christmas for middle school band, so they're pretty fired up about it.
All opposed?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, discussion and action regarding the general purpose budget for fiscal year 2024-25. Motion approved by Mr. Daniels, second by Mr. Wise. I missed you, Mr. Gregory. We'll get you on the next one. Any discussion? Mr. Lancaster.
First of all, sorry I'm late. Your 6-year-old only gets to wear a cap and gown one time, and I'm going to make sure to be there to see that. So appreciate y'all covering for me, and I listened to the discussion on the way over from Hendersonville. I think the biggest thing, it's never easy to do a budget, especially one, a large budget, and just got done with my, helping prepare one at work, and the biggest issue we have is the same issue you guys have, or we have here, is you do the best you can for your people, to try to retain folks in this job market, and you get done, and you see that number, and you're like, dadgummit, we're still possibly behind. I've had people reach out and like, well, y'all are, that's a crazy number, and I'm like, at the end of the day, it's more scary if you don't do it and you get even further behind, because at some point, you've got to make a step in the right direction to close the gap. And I think I told somebody the other day, they were like, well, aren't you afraid of, what will happen if you don't do this, or what will happen? I mean, you're always kind of, there's a budget is a plan, and you've got to try to stick to a plan the best you can. There's no, I don't think I've ever lost sleep over one, but I don't lose sleep over much when it comes to numbers. But I would much, I think I would lose a lot more sleep if we're in a point where we're paying $12 an hour, and as I talked to a lady this week who I got the dreaded, hey, you're on the school board, right, at Walgreens, and the first reaction is, no, that's some other guy, and the second reaction is to duck. But got a good conversation with her. She's a parent at one of my schools, and she's like, yeah, I'm a paralegal, and I do this on the side to pick up some extra money because, hey, everybody's trying to figure out where their money went. That's what I'm trying to figure out the last few years. Where'd my money go? Because, I've gotten a raise the last 2 years, 3 years, and in theory, you'd have extra money, but I got less money now than I did 3 years ago. So, had a good conversation with her, and I was like, hey, so what do you start out making at Walgreens as a cashier? She's like, oh, they're $18 an hour. So I'm like, well, that's what we're competing against, and she doesn't have to, clean up after a bunch of kids or feed a bunch of kids or assistant teach a bunch. It's the headache is less, and there's just no way I can justify that our folks aren't worth that $4 extra an hour, and hopefully we can manage our budget well this year, not utilize the reserve that we're plugging the budget with, and get some help from the state, and the commission continues to give us an extra amount each year and, you know, continue to grow that. So I'm very grateful that of our people that have worked for us and continue to work for us, and knowing they could go other places. And that's, you know, one person that comes to mind is, you know, Mr. Mack at Beach Elementary. Mr. Mack comes and is the custodian at night. He drives a bus during the day. I think he's filled in the cafeteria, I know. And you see him and I'm like, man, you're here as much as I am, I feel like. And he's always got a smile on his face and he's happy to see the kids. And that just, those kind of people, you know, you want to make sure you do everything possible to keep them. And so I'm proud to support what we're doing here tonight. So thank you.
Mr. Lancaster, Mr. Lacy.
So I guess we're discussing the main budget. Like I said, you never can go wrong, and I'll keep this short and sweet. You can never go wrong being good to your employees. And I think this would get them to close to where they need to be. I wonder if we could make an amendment to it. I did the math. We got 2,545 certified staff. And if we could increase their pay by $2,200, that would be like 5.5 million, almost 5.6. Could we do away with remove the 44 new positions and add that to the certified teacher pay? I think that would get our teachers where they need to be, where they should be, and make us competitive. And that's what I would like to put, that would be my motion, is to remove the 44 new positions and add it to the certified teacher pay increase. And it should increase it, if my math is correct, $5,599,000. $5,599,000.
Motion's been made to amend the budget according to what Mr. Lacy said. Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Yeah. Mr. Graham.
Are you referring to also, like, are those also the new positions that would be at White House Intermediate?
I wouldn't want to take away if it's like a new position for a new school that we have to have, but before we add something extra or new, I would like to take care of our current employees that we have.
But are those the field level positions? I just want clarification.
Dr. Langford.
I'm looking right now. You know, some, like, for instance, the additional assistant principals at Liberty Creek High School and Burris Elementary are warranted on ratios. So you would be running, Burris is about 800 students and they have 1 AP, so they should have 2 APs by size. Liberty Creek High School is the same thing with the growth that we've had there. And then Gallatin High School, we've never done a 5th AP at the high school, but Gallatin High School is our largest high school, and it makes sense to me to leave that. I think you know, you would have in there the principal, the office staff at White House Intermediate, custodian, lead educator, nurse. Some of those custodians would all be at White House Intermediate. I mean, it's pretty lean. A lot of those additional, for instance, like a lot of those additional certified teachers and counselors are based off growth. You know, we didn't really add much of anything. You could look at cutting, you know, I think it'd be a question of where we want to invest based on currently for the future. I don't think you would get anywhere near if you just cut, like if you looked at the 6 additional district level staff positions, if you cut those, I mean, you're probably looking at maybe, let me add real quick. I mean, you're probably talking about maybe $600,000 or $700,000.
Or could we, or am I allowed to speak?
Yeah.
Sorry. Or could we, you know, possibly could we get rid of the coaching supplements, or not the sub pay, but maybe the non-academic supplements, and keep some of this 5.8 million for the new positions, but the rest of the money go towards getting our certified staffed where they need to be.
Can I just need to make sure every dollar you add in a salary, you have to add, by law, taxes and retirement, which on average is, for a certified staff, is almost 17%. So you can't just do the increase in amount, you also have to add taxes and retirement on any dollar.
Would it be better to do it just by just adding a dollar amount than where that? How would you do that then? How would you add it into their pay?
I mean, we would have to adopt a salary table, and then I would run my model, and I would spread that over what staff, every staff that we have, and then obviously taxes and retirement are calculated on top of any salary increase.
You done, Mr. Lacy?
I mean, yeah, that would be my motion, whichever the board would find, I guess, more acceptable.
Okay. Ms. Andrews?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and say I can't support that motion, just knowing what the needs of our district are. Specifically looking at your certified teachers, counselors, I would say at least one of those counselor positions are for White House Intermediate. White House Intermediate is going to need office staff, bookkeepers, librarians, PE teacher, art teacher, librarian, cafeteria staff. All of that will have to be required there. I also believe, custodians, lead educator, all of those are definitely needed positions. Anytime I have spoken to our certified staff, I'll be 100% on it. They have said, we appreciate every raise we get, but if they had to pick between themselves and the classified staff, I'm going to tell you right now, hand over hand, they will give it to the classified staff because they need those people. Our classified staff are who lift our certified staff up. They're who make it able for them to go to school every day because that is their backbone, that is their support. And so while I know, I was really, really excited with the January proposal and hopeful. I'm disappointed that numbers didn't come in like they quite frankly could have. I know there's $140 million, set aside right now for vouchers. That could go a long way to our teachers. That's incredibly frustrating for me. So to know those numbers didn't come in like I'd like, but to hear from staff, to hear that yes, one, they are getting raises, and then to hear from our classified staff, I think a lot of times our classified staff, they come in because they have a heart for our students, for our schools, for our community, and they know they're not coming for the pay. But to have this type of offer to increase their pay by this amount, I think also gives them a level of respect and really does show them appreciation. And so I think every position that's here is needed. My personal opinion, there's probably additional positions that are needed, and so I can't cut any of those.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews. Mr. Lancaster?
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, Mr. Lacy, because I kind of had the same initial thought when I looked at it. It's like, man, we're so dang close to getting, and the biggest worry I've got is we're going to be just under where surrounding counties are, and I do, having talked to some teachers, I do think that our benefits overall kind of make that difference up because the amount that Robertson County employees pay in benefits compared to it's at least close enough that I don't think we're going to lose anybody because of that $2,200. And knowing next year that we got to get it, it's not a choice. The thing. First of all, I don't think the math works. I know what you're looking at it and saying, well, it's 5.8 versus 5.8, which is right. But like you say, when you have to add in the benefits and everything else, you're really looking at 6 plus 20% on top of that. So that's 7.2. And you may, you know, some of those positions I don't think you could cut. So you might save 3 to get 7.2. So you still got 4.2 that you got to come up with somewhere. I don't see it, you know. But I completely understand where you're coming from, because I had the same thought, like, hey, we're almost there. You know, but if I had to choose between, you know, and that's a horrible thing to choose, like, hey, are my teachers, you know, I'd like to give you 50,000 plus, or, you know, my classified staff that hadn't been here, you know, that are still at $12, you know, at least we're taking the bigger chunk there, and we know that we'll have to go to 50 by, you know, state mandate next year, and we should get additional help from the state for that. So that's, you know, kind of been my message to teachers, is just, you know, thanks and please hold on, because, you know, we are going to get there. It's just, you know, not going to happen overnight. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at. But I do appreciate your thought on it, because I had the same thought. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lancaster. I'll come back to y'all, Dr. Langford.
Yeah, Mr. Lacy, I agree with you 100%. I think, to pick up on what Mr. Lancaster said, the state is going to put the money in for 50 next year. I think, like, I also think, you know, like, I don't think I would have the reputation as just being conciliatory to the county commission. I think I've proven that, you know, I'll go to battle, but I also don't think, like, they've been really easy to work with and good to work with. And I don't think, like, you know, I spent 7 years as chair of the county commission. I can count to 13 a whole lot of ways, and I can tell you there's not any more revenue that we're going to get out of this budget, because we've got the sheriff's office, the highway department, EMS, all the county offices, everybody. We're trying to make market adjustments across the board. And I think, you know, for me, one of the things that we've done really well is we've always worked together to try to lift all the ships together. And I don't want to, you know, if we got $1 million more from the commission, it would be $1 million out of the sheriff's office, or $1 million out of the highway department, or $1 million somewhere else. And, you know, in my conversations, like, I appreciate the deliberations that we've had in the conversations. So, you know, my recommendation is I would love to get to 50 if we could, but I also want to get the budget done, and I want to do so in a way that protects and lifts up the entire county. And, you know, the easiest thing would be just to throw down and let's go over there and fight, but I don't think it would be best for Sumner County. That'd be my recommendation. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Dr. Langford. Mr. Wise?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I need to state that my son is an employee of the school system. He is a teacher. Also, I need to state that he does not live at my house. His finances do not mingle with my finances. We have some 5,000 other employees, so I'll be voting my conscience. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Mr. Grant?
I just have a question for clarification back to what Ms. Brown was talking about, adding 17% for tax benefits and all those things. When we talk about the January compensation proposal, that was 45 million or so, did that include that 17% for benefits? And okay, so when we talk about the current proposal of 9.4 million for certified employees to get them to the 46,000 and change, does that also include the 17% for benefits and taxes and such?
It also includes a step, which by law we have to give. I don't
right.
think.
No, yeah. So if we're looking at that, if we're talking about, you know, back in January we said to get to 50,000, we need 15 million, and that includes already the 17%.
It did not include the step, right, Ms. Brown?
It did not include the step.
It did not include the step.
Okay, I understood when Mr. Ott gave that presentation that did include the step, so it does not.
It did not.
Do we know what would be an easy way to try to figure that out? Just quick rough math.
You mean just to see like what it would cost to go to 50?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's another thing. Sorry. Here's a lot of math nobody wants to hear, but also, so that the number that we presented in the earlier was all, not just general purpose. And so that included federal school nutrition and some of the other funds, because that is still cost our school district. So just to clarify that. But it's additional approximately 8.5 to go to 50 based on the way our current scale is built. And that was, you know, smoothing some of those steps, and you kind of see what it is in front of you with those percentages.
Yeah, and I think, Mr. Graham, to your point, one of the things that has changed,
GP.
the other thing that's changed since January is that they worked to, if you remember, I think I shared last week, we used to have this crazy pay scale that had county, state, and then it went to like 19, and then it went to 24, and then it went to, so it got wonky. So they have smoothed it out so that you get a consistent raise each year, not 1.7 one year and 2.3 the next, or 1.2 to you know, they smoothed that out, which also changed the, it's good for the long run, but you know, a little bit different this year.
Classified too, also, especially since our presentation in January, we also tweaked a little bit to make that those raises more consistent and smoother too, which is a little different than earlier. We just had more time to do the analysis.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Mr. King?
Yeah, did you just say that to get to 50 it would be 8.5 million? Well, even though on here it says 9.4.
That was the difference between all in, when we were talking about the federal and all of that, yeah.
So 8.5.
General purpose.
Okay. That's 2.2% of the budget. So is there not, I mean, I understand Mr. Lacey's math and his items that he's wanting to cut and all that may not, maybe that's not the right items or the right things, but I was just thinking about what this gentleman said earlier, that, you know, this is a market adjustment year, and I was thinking about what Dr. Langford said, you know, and Dr. Langford, you were saying that if we could end up needing to go to even just with other surrounding districts already at 50 in coming years. If we wait and go to 50 next year, they're already going to be at what, 52?
I don't know. Here's what I think is going to happen is there's a lot of TISA math that hasn't hit districts yet. I think some districts have done things that are not financially sustainable without significant tax increases for their counties. I think that they leveraged that big increase in TISA that we got 2 years ago. I think they leveraged that. And I think for some districts, for smaller districts, it makes sense to do some of that because it gave them a recruiting edge. But I don't think that, if you look at their numbers, like for instance, some of those districts are going to get maybe $300,000 for a penny, where we're going to be at, you know, somewhere between, I would say, 870 and 930 a penny. So I don't know, you know, other districts are only slightly above the maintenance of effort required by the state. So like for us, it'd be like 70 million. We're at 127, and we'll go up, you know, the money just like another 14 million this year. So what's going to happen is for them to go above 50 is going to require the county commission to raise taxes, not our county commission, but these other districts. So I think that there was a big jump in teacher pay because of that one-time big jump in TISA funding. And I think it's going to be interesting to see, because those districts, you know, like where right now, anytime the local contribution goes up on TISA, it's going to come out of the money that the state gives us, not what the county commission has to pay through their revenue. And so it's really going to put, TISA is going to put a lot of bind on small districts and districts that don't generate a lot of revenue on property taxes. And so I don't know if they're going to have the capacity. Like, I think everyone is going to have to continue to increase teacher pay if you want to continue to hire teachers, because everybody in the country is doing it right now. But I don't know, you know, I think like our competition is going to be, in 5 years, it's going to be Williamson, Rutherford, Wilson, Sumner. Those are our competitors when people are moving in. You know, Williamson, for instance, they stay right above the required maintenance of effort. They don't carry a very large reserve. I don't know about Wilson. I don't know about Rutherford. they're also having to expand. Rutherford is doing a $500 million building program right now because they're adding, we dropped slightly in our student enrollment this year. Rutherford County added 2,000 students. So they're adding, if you think about it, they're adding a high school a year. Our classes are about 2,300, and they're actually, they're adding a significant number of kids. Now, I don't know what will happen because I do think growth is tapering off. Like, I don't think it's going to be as rapid as it has been. I know there are a lot of houses in the pipeline to be built, but the question is, will they ever be built and will they be filled? And I don't know. We're going to continue to have growth, but I don't think it's going to be at the rates that we've had the last decade or so. So long story short, like, I don't know. I mean, if districts are going to increase to get to 55 or 60,000 for teachers, it's going to require a significant investment of state and local funding and revenue, and that's going to require county commissions across the state to set tax rates that support that. Because I mean, at the end of the day, if you want to pay teachers $55,000 and you want to pay deputy sheriffs, you want to do all these other things, you just take it and you divide it and you look at the tax rate and say that's where we got to go. We don't have the advantage of Washington where we can just print money. We have to actually pay for everything that we do, and I think that's going to be. This is what elections are going to swing on. This is what it's going to be like. People are going to have to put out there and say this is where we think communities need to be and where we need to go. And then we're going to just, I mean, it's not hard. You just do, like, we'll know this year what a penny's worth, and you can do the math and figure out what kind of revenue you have to add to get there. And then you can do the math, like, I'll be honest, I did the math to see what it would cost to add 30 pennies to the tax rate to pay for compensation for everybody in the county. My house valued at $805,000. And it would cost me an extra $900 a year. So that's the kind of real math and hard conversation that we're going to have. I think we're probably closer there as a county to be able to have some real conversations. I'll be honest, like, I left the county commission meeting last night very encouraged. I had some great conversations with commissioners and things like that. Now, I want to be very clear. I'm not saying there's not one vote at the county commission to raise the tax rate 30 pennies. That's not what I'm saying. I just want to give, because a lot of times we get caught up in percentages and we don't think about the actual number of what it means, because like last year, if you dropped the tax rate by a penny, it equaled about $70 a family, maybe $100 if you had a higher valued home. It's just the question is, short answer to your question, Mr. King, is if districts are going to hit that 55 mark, the only way you get there is with a significant increase in revenue.
Okay, well, my thought, and I appreciate that.
Can I say point of order on something just to clarify? Because two board members, Dr. Langford kind of misspoke. Miss Andrews kind of, I don't think she understood what I motioned. Just to clarify.
Well, let me clarify. A lot of questions come up, and we chase other questions and everything. We do need to reel back in, and we are discussing Mr. Lacey's motion. We need to keep our discussion on that at this point.
Okay. I mean, I am discussing that because this is leading to that, because you're wanting to get teachers.
I'm not increasing the budget that's presented. It actually would be a little bit less, because 17% of 5.6 million is $952,000. So it would actually be less than what's projected by Dr. Langford and his team. If you cut out the 5.8 million for the new positions and the coaching supplement, you'd actually be under that.
Are you saying that gets us to?
It's 5.6 million just to raise it the $2,200 to get them to 50,000.
So,
and then 17% of that is $952,000
for benefits.
And you would have your certified staff where they're supposed to be Robertson County, Metro, Williamson County, Rutherford, and Lebanon City. Dr. Langford said it's already at $50,000. So that would get us competitive to the other counties. He said that in our last board meeting.
So what I was getting at was, right, the goal. I'm talking about his amendment. It may require some different items to be pulled, or other than what you're suggesting, Mr. Lacey. So, but his goal is to get teachers to 50K. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So, which is 2.2% of this operating budget, 8.5 million, according to what Ms. Brown said. So I'm just, I mean, we're so close. We're like this, we're right here. And I'm just thinking along the lines of what Mr. Lacey is proposing, is there not 2.2% that we could trim somewhere to get this to 50K? Because I just feel like if we don't do it now, we're going to be kind of left behind other counties, and they're already there. I just, man, can we get teachers to 50K with the current funding that we have? And are there things in our budget that we can function without? I believe there are. I think. I mean, there's got to be. I haven't had time to really dive in, but can we function without it? Should be the question, with the larger goal in mind. And then not only that, in some of the positions he's talking about, I don't think we should cut. There's needs, like we were talking about, some of those 38 certified positions. Those are teachers that are required, that are needed at schools. But there's extra positions in here, and I understand the desire for that. And part of me is thinking, if the further away you get from a classroom, the less impact an employee is going to have on students. And if we make the goal to get to that 50K, 8.5 million, 2.2% of this current budget, if we can trim it down to get there, I think we should. I think it's a world. I don't know what we would amend here. I don't know how I would amend his amendment, Mr. Chairman, but I feel like we should try for that tonight, in my opinion. I feel like, in the spirit of, the Apollo missions, failure is not an option. That's how I feel tonight. I don't want to walk out of here having missed the mark by 2.2%. That's just how I feel. So I don't know what we do with his amendment or his motion. I think we still need to flesh that out, but that's where my head is. And as far as the reserves go, like Mr. Lancaster said, we
Point of order, we're discussing an amendment right now.
Let's stay on the amendment, Mr. King.
Okay, I can share that point at a later time. So, but just to close it out, his amendment I don't think is quite at the mark yet, but the goal, I agree with the goal. I think we need to get our teachers to 50K tonight. I can amend it maybe and say, just a motion for that, make a motion to.
I would recommend we vote on the motion, and then if you want to make an
Sure.
amendment to the other motion, then you can do that later on.
Okay.
Mr. Wise.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So,
Mr. Lacey, are you done?
No, sir.
Oh, Mr. Wise then, okay.
am I on?
You're on, yes.
Thank you, sir. So with this amendment, it sounds like we're wanting to open White House Intermediate with no custodians and no clerks. And you eat an elephant one bite at a time, so I think that's what we're trying to do here.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Ms. Andrews?
Yes, we are getting close to 9 o'clock, so I'd like to make a motion to extend the meeting by 1 hour.
Motion's been made to extend the meeting by an hour.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lacey. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Meeting will go to no later than 10 o'clock.
Can I still?
Yeah, Ms. Andrews.
I also just want to clarify that I did absolutely understand what your motion was. My point was, while I agree that we would love to be able to get our teachers to 50,000, I'm not willing to do that at the sake of sacrificing the new positions that have been presented.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews. Mr. Lacey.
Yes, sir. And I gave this to Mr. Johnson earlier today. Per board policy, You know, if you have a family member that works for the schools that lives in your house, you're supposed to fill this out, turn it in. It says, I have a personal interest in this budget. My wife is a teacher, and I will benefit from the pay raises for the certified teachers. But I will be voting on this budget not to represent my wife, but for the 2,300 certified teachers in this county, and it's actually 2,400 and something teachers. Like I said, I believe it's in our county's best interest to get our teachers to 50,000. There's Robertson County, Metro, Williamson County, Rutherford, and Lebanon City that are already paying $50,000 a year. And that would give competitive wages to our staff.
Thank you, Mr. Lacy. Mr. Daniels.
Yeah, I just, I was thinking about the 2.2% that one of our board members was mentioning, and I go back to slide, I think number 20 in the budget presentation that shows salary and benefits is 81.9%. When you talk about 2.2% and finding that 2.2%, contracted services, 2.2%, supplies and materials, 2.8%, maintenance and operations, 4.8%, capital, 7.2%, other charges, 1.2%. Most of the budget is going to salary and benefits right now. Are you going to cut contracted services? Are you going to cut supplies and materials? Are you going to cut maintenance and operations? I mean, if we're talking about cutting, that's where you're going to have to cut. Yeah, there may be some personnel in here, but based on the budget, based on the presentation, based on the needs that our principals have provided and our staff's provided to our district that they need in their schools, I'm not comfortable with cutting any of those positions. I think, listening to Dr. Langford, not just talk about our school budget, but his understanding of how county finances work, of how state finances work, of where he sees the state going in years to come, where he sees challenges in other districts. I think what we're trying to do is move the needle in a positive direction. And one of the things that when we budget and we look at growth in my business is we always look to say, is it sustainable long term? I think this budget puts us on a path to be able to sustain what we're trying to accomplish and continue to grow from there based on funding that I believe will continue to come from the state. At some point, they're going to have to tap into that money that's sitting aside for voucher programs in order to meet the promises that they've made to our constituents, that we're going to move pay raises or pay for all teachers to a minimum of $50,000. There's more money that's got to come from the state somewhere, right? I'm not sure if the amount of money that we're talking about between where we are right now, where we want to go next year, is going to be the difference in a teacher making the decision to teach in Sumner County versus one of the surrounding counties this year. Might you lose some? Yes, it's absolutely possible. But I also think our benefit package is better than the benefit packages that are offered in other counties. That's something that's going to help keep people here, and that's built into the salary structure that we have as well. So I believe moving in the direction we're moving, with the amounts we're moving, and our plan, which we presented in January, and the understanding of where we know we need to get to, I think both our certified employees and our classified employees can see that, and it's going to make them want to stay. It's going to help us retain the good teachers and continue to recruit good teachers, knowing that we're moving in the right direction and we're positioning ourselves to be able to sustain that in future years. So I can't vote for the amendment. I will vote for the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Mr. Gregory?
Every school, excuse me, I've been in, and I don't know if they knew this was going to come up or not, but they have really said the lead educators were very important in their building. And also about the coaching supplements, Dr. Langford, how many years has it been since there's been a...
We have no idea, Mr. Gregory. So 30 years at least.
About 30 years.
Yeah.
And I have heard more than one principal say, if you lose a coach, it's the most difficult thing to hire in Sunbury County. So I do appreciate what you're doing. Well, I have a daughter that teaches in Sunbury County and have another daughter in I guess I better say my wife and I have daughters that actually in another state. But I do believe that the lead educators and the coaches situation are important.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gregory.
I do appreciate what you're doing. I do.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Gregory. See, you know what the light's on? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Hayes.
Thank you, Chairman Burke. Mr. Lacy, I appreciate all of us would want, wants and needs, we want to be able to pay our teachers $50. Absolutely. Every one of us on this board. I implicitly trust Craig Ott, Ms. Brown, your team, Ms. Brown, your team, our principals who started this budget process last fall, as encouraged by Dr. Langford to let's start this process early. They have been working on this, projecting the needs and how we can have a fiscally sound budget, always with the goal that we're going, and by state law, we're going to pay those teachers $50 next year. So you all, to your cross-eyed, look at numbers, scales, pay, federal budgets, state budgets, our general purpose budget, Amanda. This is what you do. This is what you are trained to do. I appreciate your ability to communicate to us in a way that I can understand. Now, Mr. Lancaster and some of these others, which might be their world, they get it quickly. But I appreciate your ability to communicate this to us in layman's terms that we're able to see it. But I implicitly trust your leadership, the countless hours you had spent in preparing this and giving our certified and classified teachers a raise, much needed. So, and to address the needs that we have and the growth in this county. So I want to thank you both. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Mr. Lancaster, on the amendment?
Yes, sir. You know, I agree with, you know, the thought behind it and the hope for it, the thought behind it. My concern is, you know, we have got to manage, I mean, this budget's kind of two-pronged. We've got to manage and keep a reserve going into next year to avoid, you know, we've kind of got it where we can, or at least in my opinion, we've got it to where we can kind of manage a gradual increase. If we take, I worry if we take too much, you know, and when I say take too much of a bite, if we go ahead and say, hey, we're going to pay 50 this year, well, you've got to, I mean, once you make that call, then that's for sure happening. I mean, it's not like you're, whereas if you got some of these positions that you're looking to hire or whatever, you kind of gauge and utilize your budget from that standpoint as far as when those people come in or whatever. You know, I worry if we take too much of a bite now and you don't have the reserve that we keep the reserve and we actually chew it up, and then next year we're going to be sitting around looking like, hey, we need this much plus what we've already, you know, the reserve we've lost. And going back to, you know, kind of where you said, hey, we're, you know, we got to stay competitive. You know, Robertson County they were at 50,000 this entire year. They were at 50,000 at the start of the 23-24 school year. You know, did we lose anybody? We might have lost somebody to Robertson. I don't think we lost a ton of people. You know, I think keep working our way to getting there. And I mean, we're not like y'all say, we're not. I understand both sides because hey, we're not far off. But at the same time, I worry if we take too much of that, we're not going to be able to, you know, keep that reserve which we utilize to, you know, going forward. That's my concern, and that's why I can't. You know, there's a term. You know, you can be very aggressive in a budget. You can be conservative in a budget. When you're conservative in a budget, you budget high and try to control your expense. When you're aggressive in a budget, you try to pinpoint where you're going to land, and it's a dangerous game for me, and especially when you know I'm talking about other people's money, and you know it just that's my concern. So I'll be voting for the budget. I can't vote to get any more aggressive on this budget than we already have. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Castro. All right, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Can you read the amendment?
Mr. Johnson, could you read the amendment again?
Motion to amend to remove the 44 new positions and add the cost back into the budget to use for teacher raises.
And, I guess.
Coaching supplements. Coaching supplements, yeah. I'll add that in.
17%.
And to remove the coaching supplements as well.
All right, everybody okay? All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. Motion fails. We're back to the main motion to approve the budget. Ms. Andrews.
Yeah, I want to just ask as well, because I agree, we are really close as far as getting to 50, getting more than 50. And I agree with Mr. Lancaster as far as, you know, I think one of the things that we need to realize is that we are in prime hiring season, and so we need, you know, it's easier to go with the budget now that we have, that we know that it's balanced, that we can present to the commission for them to approve, so that our teachers can hire, or our principals can hire, teachers know whether or not they have a job, and so forth. But with that said, hypothetically speaking, if for some reason the state mid-year did something and they decided to allocate more funds, you know, maybe they took money from the, again, hypothetically speaking, from the voucher money or something and decided to give it to districts. If revenues came in for whatever reason higher, if miraculously the county commission set a tax rate that was higher or something and we ended up getting additional dollars, we could mid-year make a pay adjustment at that time if there were those funds available and we felt like that was in the best interest of our district.
Yes, we did that in 2020. We added in January, we added a $4,000 pay increase.
So we know that this is for sure, and we can bank on this. And then again, as things come in, again, 100% hypothetical. I have no idea and don't have any expectations that that would happen. But if in the event that it did, we would be able to account for that at that time if we felt like that was needed.
Yeah, I think it's important to look at the overall. It's easy to focus on the 2.2%, but if you look at it, this is a $28.9 million increase in compensation in one jump. It's since January 2020, we've increased starting teacher pay $11,700. We're increasing sped pay $10,000, and we're increasing classified salary by about 33 to 35% on average. So I think it's more than a buy. I mean, it's almost, to Mr. Wise's point, it's almost a whole elephant. We're close.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews. Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I keep hearing, we need to take small bites and one bite at a time and elephants and things of that nature. But my biggest fear is that, the last dog at the bowl doesn't get any food. I appreciate the state stepping up and saying teachers are worth at least $50,000 a year. But as we know in government, there's always unintended consequences. And I think what has happened with requiring that increase is it has started a bidding war. And all of the surrounding counties have lifted their paddle. And we're sitting here and we're not getting in the game yet. And I sat in this seat a year ago, and I said, hey, we need to do what we can to get as close to 50 as possible last year. And I said, hey, we need to get as close to $18 an hour as we can last year, because I knew that we're competing against businesses in our community, and I knew that we are competing against other systems who would already be raising their minimum to 50, and they have. And so now they'll, those teachers will be making 52. We've lost out probably on a lot of those teachers. So, what I completely understand is that the pool of certified teachers available has continuously gone down. We've talked about how, if we're the largest trainer in the state of Tennessee to certify teachers as a county system, that tells you how dire it is for the pool of qualified and certified teachers there are, right? We shouldn't be, it's fantastic, great job, right? But that's not a burden that we should have ever really taken on. That should have been a burden that all the colleges and universities promoted. And so we see the finite number of qualified teachers depleting, and we see this feeding frenzy that has been established by the state law. And they've created a bidding war, and the minimum bid is $50,000, and bidding started last year. And it is my deepest fear that if we don't get in the game now, then we're going to continue to be behind. So I was looking at the budget, and I have a couple questions. I know we have a brand new allocation of 3.1 and change million for instructional coaches. Those are not positions that we've had. Those are not positions we're increasing. That's brand new. Per Mr. Ott's team.
Josh,
yes.
Mr. Graham, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I want to clarify that. Those were what we have always considered lead educators, and in the past, those were in 71, 100, 116.
So those have been moved from the teachers?
Yes,
Okay.
so that was in 71, 100, 116, and the state has required that accounting change, just to clarify.
Then I'll change my approach, because here's the thing, and I don't want to pay high taxes either. With inflation, with the cost of everything going up, when you work in the private sector, you get your 2 or 3% raise. It certainly hasn't, kept up with the 6 and 7% inflation every year. But I also want to have a system that works, and I want to have teachers in classrooms, and I want our students to have the best education possible. So I would be okay voting for the increase. Right now we're looking, we need, what they said, 8.5 million. That's a drop in the bucket of our total budget. That's a drop in the bucket of the county's total budget. Me personally, I'd rather throw the long bomb while we have some time on the clock right now than back ourselves into a corner next year after we've already lost more positions and after we're trying to catch up even further, and after we won't have any reserve left over to try to get there. So I'm not going to vote for the budget as it is, but I would make a motion to increase the teacher pay to $50,000 and ask for 8.5 million more in revenue.
Motion been made to increase teacher pay by to 50,000, and it's been seconded. Discussion? Ms. Andrews? I got Ms. Andrews first.
I appreciate that, but my question is, have you had any indication from anybody as far as a funding source that would get approved? Because if you want to talk about...
Ms. Andrews, if you would direct your comments to the chair, please.
If we want to talk about getting in a competition with getting teachers and so forth, the way that's going to happen is us getting into a battle back and forth with the county commission on whether or not they're going to fund a budget. And then if we ask for additional dollars, if they choose not to do that, then we're looking at later and later before our budget gets approved and before our principals are confident with hiring those positions, or where those people are confident in accepting a position that may later have to get cut if the budget does have to get cut back. Actually just had sent to me, just so we're all on the same page, where Williamson County approved a 6% increase for their teachers, and now they say those are in jeopardy. That's coming right now, that because of allocations and so forth, and so they're going to have to cut programming and pay increases. This is on Channel 4 News as of tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews. Mr. Lacy?
Do we know exactly what that would cost? I know my rough math, 5.6 million plus the $952,000, 17% comes out to $6,551,000.
That was right at 8.5 million.
There's $2 million of other stuff in there. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Lacy. Mr. King?
Yeah, so speaking on his amendment, I don't know if we need to ask the county commission for more funds. And I understand it's frustrating. It's frustrating that, you know, Ms. Andrews mentioned the vouchers. You know, if you divide that up evenly across the county, that's another 1.5 million to every county. The 140 million that they're just kind of parking on the side. That's frustrating. I get it. But what's equally frustrating is the $20 million we're paying every year to service debt. So that's also a frustrating thing for me. 2 years ago, it was $34 million a year, and you know, 1 year of that could pay to build a school. So it's frustrating. We definitely have some funding quagmires, and just so. And with all due respect to Mr. Daniels, I was not trying to pinpoint a particular item like contracted services or maintenance and operations or anything like that to cut. If you look at our financial reports and you look at the lines, a lot of our the actuals come in very low to the budget amount. And so what I was proposing or discussing or throwing out there is going through the lines, looking and see what is there. We have 17,000 lines, is that correct? Yeah, 17,000 lines. A lot of those are not coming, their actuals are a lot lower than and I believe Dr. Langford said we hit 90%, 92% average on our budget lines last year.
Say 93, 94, somewhere in there usually.
Okay, so, you know, we had a restricted budget amount of 29 million that was that we voted on. A restricted fund balance amount, a fund balance amount of 29 million. Well, at the time it was 37 million and it ended up being 29 million. That was sitting there in a restricted fund balance. We ended up not using all of that. Our reserves went up 7 million. They were at 126 million at the end of June 30th, according to the comptroller. So our reserves went up. What I'm saying is we are spending lower than what we budget. Can we not find 8.5 million, 2.2%, in that 8% or in that wiggle room somewhere in there in our current budget or this budget that we're working on tonight? Can we not find that somewhere to get us to 50K? I'm not cutting maintenance of operations. I'm not cutting supplies and materials. I'm talking about trimming some of these lines because the actuals come in a lot lower.
So I think that, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Dr. Langford.
I think that there are a couple things that were in that reserve. First off, that 100 and whatever million number that you mentioned included a lot of things like our insurance trust, school nutrition trust. It wasn't straight reserve that's accessible to us. I think the other thing is there were funds in there that we caught because there were some years, especially during COVID, where we projected revenue really low. Like Mr. Lawing is he's a wizard with projections to give us a conservative budget revenue that usually comes in higher. But that built over a couple years. We caught revenue for a year before we spent it sometimes. And so if you look at the way that we have addressed needs this year with capital, if you take athletic facilities off the table from what we invested this year and plan to invest next year, we invested a significant amount of money that normally we would not have spent. We put it in roofs and HVACs and paving and different things like that. So that money is not there. You're looking like I hope, our goal for this coming year is to squeeze and get as close to 90% as we can. But some of the areas over the last couple of years where we have been way under are lines like personnel because we weren't staffed fully. What we're catching now, we're catching a couple pressures. Mr. Ott mentioned the non-exempt rules that are coming from the feds. We extended, and I think it's a great thing, we extended FMLA paternity leave, maternity leave, to not just certified employees as required by state law, but to all employees, which I think is a fantastic thing for our employees. That's going to cost a significant amount of money. We're starting to see, like, most of our employees, men did not take paternity leave. Now we have a significant number of men that are staying home with their children, which is wonderful, but it costs money that we haven't historically put in, or the fact that it's all paid. Now, we do get reimbursed for certified staff at some level, but classified we do not. But it's the right thing to do, and I'm 100% good with it. But we've got some pressures like that are, and I think when we do this compensation, when we're increasing compensation by $28.9 million, it's those positions that historically have been hard to fill are going to fill at a much higher rate, and we're not going to, it's going to be harder to hold that personnel line at 93%. I'm hoping we can, but I don't know that that's a variable that I can't, I don't think we can project off of comfortably.
Yeah, and just to piggyback, when we would have someone out on an extended medical leave, usually, the cost of that, unless it was filled with an interim, but I have no way to trim that because it's so new. I have no way to trim that additional cost. Now we're tracking it so that I can try to trim that, but I don't have enough actuals yet to do that. And even in 1 year won't be a good trend. But I mean, and poor Andy Brown, he can attest. I'm making, I'm like, nope, you can't spend that. Nope, you can't spend that right now. And so we really are good stewards of our money, and we really, I've worked for other governmental agencies, and at the end of the year they had some money and they spent every penny. We don't do that. We try to save as much as we can. But to Dr. Langford's point, a lot of those savings have been for staffing vacancies that we're hoping may not exist anymore.
All right, well, I don't know. I think we can do it. I'm not hearing support for it, but that's okay. So, but I can't vote to ask for more funding from the county.
Mr. King, Mr. Daniels.
Yeah, I just just to go back to that 2.2%, I wasn't implying that anybody was saying that we should cut contracted services or supplies, materials, or any of those items. The point I was trying to make is that when we say it's just 2.2%, there are a lot of things that are operating this budget on 2.2%. Supplies, materials, maintenance operations, gasoline that we purchase. A lot of our expenses are tied up in salary and benefits. And that's really the place that you'd have to cut if you wanted to try to make it that different somewhere else. I think, to the point that Ms. Brown was making was, apologize for that, but the point that she was making is that we keep our budget as lean as we possibly can in a lot of these other areas in order to provide for our students and for our staff. And sometimes we can't get all the way to where we want to be, but I do think the plan that we have in place to get us there is a sound plan, and it puts us in position to get there next year. It's not this year. I hate that it's not this year. I think we want it all to be this year, but I feel much more comfortable with knowing that with the plan that we have right now, we're much more likely to be there next year than trying to force ourselves to get there this year and then maybe having to deal with some negative consequences with that next year. And we don't know what those consequences could be. But again, I also think that the steps that we're making right now, moving in the right direction, is going to allow us to retain the good quality staff that we want to be able to retain and recruit good quality individuals that we want to recruit to bring into our school system. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Mr. Lancaster.
Yeah, going back to Mr. Graham's motion, I pretty good conversation with Commissioner Schoaf over the weekend, just see where they were at. You know, I think the one thing that I think needs to be hammered home is, the commissions gave us more or as much as the state did this year, and I'm grateful for that. I know Commissioner Schoaf has worked to try to make sure to carve as much additional revenue towards us this year as he possibly could. I just don't think it's fair to go back to them and knowing that they're also trying to get the highway, the roads crews, the EMS, the sheriff, everybody's getting their budgets increased because everybody has a job issue, So I just don't think it's fair for us to say, hey, well, we need more to get that point this year. Now, next year, if and the other thing, going back to Mr. King's point, is there 2.2% somewhere? Are we planning? As everybody always says, we don't want to utilize reserves to pay for recurring expenses. Well, right now, what we're saying is, we hope like hell we don't, we continue with our 92% rate. If we start saying, well, we're going to go ahead and, guarantee that that's going to happen, then we are running the risk of burning through reserves on recurring expenses. And so those are just the things that concern me from a, strictly number standpoint. The hardest part of anything is taking the emotion out of numbers because it's somebody's life behind that $2,200. That's a vacation, and I understand that, but it's also making sure that we're in a place where the commission can support it. I think we're there. I hope we're there with this budget, and also that something that we can manage going forward with the the tight line between where we hopefully continue to be with that 92% or 93% of actuals to budget. And I just worry if we start skewing that line that we could get ourselves in real trouble. So, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Lancaster. Mr. Lacy?
Yeah, I really couldn't support this either. I appreciate Mr. Graham's effort. The current projected increase is what I would accept. The reason I try to do it with my amendment is if we're going to spend that money, I would love to get the certified staff where they're supposed to be, because next year when we give raises for certified staff, they're still going to be short and we're not going to be caught up, because everybody else is probably debating on how much of a raise they're going to give their certified staff, just like we are, I assume, same time frame we are. So we're still going to be behind unless we really get after it next year or the year after.
Thank you, Mr. Lacy. All right, Mr. Johnson, would you read the amendment, please?
The motion is to increase teacher pay to $50,000 and ask for an additional $8.5 million in revenue.
All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed? No. Motion fails. Back to the main motion of the budget as presented. All right. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? No. One no. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is discussion and interaction regarding the school nutrition budget. Motion approved by Mr. Lancaster, second by Mr. Wise. Any discussion?
Would it be okay if we group and approve three through? Would it be okay if we group and approve 3 through 5?
I'm sorry?
Would it be okay if we group and approve items 3 through 5?
Motion's been made to group items 3 through 5. Second by Mr. Lacy. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
That's the motion to group has been approved. Now the motion to accept item 3 through 5. Motion Motion approved by Mr. Lancaster, second by Mr. Daniels. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item is item number 6.
I'm gonna do the same thing for motion to group and approve 6 through 10. So
Second.
they all deal with the language revisions to policies for budget.
Motion been made by Mr. Lancaster, second by Ms. Andrews. Any discussion?
Do you want to waive second?
Oh, yeah, wait, I'm fine with waive second reading, sorry.
And waive second
Apologies.
reading.
Mr. Wise wants a short June meeting.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
That's to group them. Then we got to go back and approve them. All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. They have been grouped together. Now, motion to approve. Motion approved by Mr. Daniels, second by Ms. Hayes. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. All have got approved. Next item on the agenda, discussion and interaction regarding amendments to the general purpose budget. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion approved by Ms. Hayes, second by Ms. Andrews, I think. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item, discussion and interaction regarding amendments to the federal budget. Motion approved by Mr. Wise, second by Mr. Lacy. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item is discussion of study session items. Mr. Johnson.
Just a reminder to everybody that we do not traditionally have study sessions in June or July. So our next school board meeting will be on June 11th, unless we move it, which we kind of discussed. Because didn't we have something?
We're going to have, I think a question for y'all to consider is the opening on the stadium bids will require a little bit later meeting. We needed to, the thought being we have 60 days once the bids are open to sign them and approve them. We need our next year's budget approved. Wanted to give the maximum amount of time to the commission because it's a tax reappraisal year. Like I said, the tax rate, it's a lot of moving parts on their side. So we may need a later special called meeting of the school board to, or we just move the, like if we move June 11th to the following week.
I specifically made a vacation plan where I could make the June meeting, y'all will do.
We don't have to.
No, I'll give you.
All right, Mr. Daniels.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask if we can have the updated board meeting schedule for next year.
Yeah, on the June.
Our next Saturday, yeah, our June meeting. Thank you.
All right.
So, Chairman Brewer, we're moving the meeting to where? What date?
Mr. Johnson?
If
you
it's
got a
not the
calendar?
11th, it'll be when? 1 week?
That's up to you, but if we move it, if we push it back 1 week, we think 1 week is good, Dr. Langford?
I think so.
So if we push it back 1 week, it'll be on the 18th,
Okay.
if that is good with everyone.
For June or July?
June. So the July 18th would stay the same. When the July 18th meeting is not set yet, so that's up to us in the future. But I would say the 16th, unless anybody had any strong feelings for a different time. But if we go by the traditional calendar, the July meeting would be on the 16th.
So we can get that figured.
So we could do a quick straw poll, see how everybody feels about that.
Make sure you have a form for you. I won't be here. I'll be out of town the 18th.
18th or what we were talking about, the 18th or the 16th?
18th. Talking about the 18th.
Is everybody comfortable with that?
I wouldn't be able to.
So we got two that would not be able to make it. Would that still leave us a quorum?
Yeah, that would still leave us a quorum, as long as everybody else was here.
Okay. All right, Ms. Hayes, are you done?
Oh, sorry, yes.
Okay. All right, so the next meeting will be on June 18th.
Wait a minute.
Okay, Mr. Gregory? I can't hear you. Turn your microphone on, please.
I personally prefer June 11th.
Well, they were asking if we could extend it a week to be able to get the county commission of the time that they need.
Because the stadium bids will be open past June 11th. How about June 25th? Anybody got strong feelings about June 25th?
That's dead week.
That's dead period, so that.
That's okay.
I have a standing appointment to eat Mexican on that day.
We can have our meeting day.
Mr. Gregory, you done? Okay. All right, well, it looks like the 18th.
Okay.
Everybody okay with the 18th? Okay, we'll have 2 missing. But we should still
We might
have.
3.
We might have 3, we still have a 4. We still have a 4. Yeah, yeah. Okay, next item on the agenda is comments from board members. Ms. Hayes, you want to start?
Sure. And I'm just looking around and seeing that Ms. Hawkins is not here. If I'll reach out to you all, would you all be in favor of flowers for the passing of her 101-year-old father? That'd be good. So I'll send an email and let me get some prices and information. Mr. Johnson, do you have any? None of the arrangements, nothing has been, you just died last night. Okay, great. Just want to bring that up. And I appreciate that. I know Betsy will feel loved and supported. I had the honor, congratulations to all of our 2024 graduates. I had the honor to attend 2 graduations this year. This is a test. Can you tell the difference in one than the other?
One looks a little wet.
One got a lot wet. But the HHS students got graduated. And Liberty Creek, what a beautiful, beautiful campus. It was a real treat to be there. I had the pleasure of being with Mr. Graham, Mr. King, and Mr. Teamster was there. So it always just thrills my heart to see these graduates. It'll be something that I will miss when I am off of school board. It is just thrilling and rewarding, and just to see their families' joy in this celebration. It's quite a milestone. So it was great. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Mr. Lancaster.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like the wrap up. I know there's the work never ends for a lot of people, either do the summer school and everything else, but it's been a somewhat crazy year with some of the stuff that happened, with stadiums collapsing and things like that was unexpected, but for the most part, I think we've done a lot of good overall work this year. I got a daughter that's going to high school next year, and I've got a son that's going to kindergarten. And I was at his preschool graduation tonight, and I'll some days I'm like, sometimes people ask me, like, do you regret running for school board? And there's some days that it's a pain in the butt. But overall, I feel honored to represent our people, and we've got a great school system overall. It's not perfect. We're always trying to improve it, but I couldn't hand select a better place to send my kids, I don't think. And I'm proud of the schools that they attend. I'm proud of I just, when I drop them off in the morning, I'm just like, I can't imagine a better situation for them, because I know the school system I grew up in was really good for Mississippi public education, and the opportunities that my kids have at their schools and at schools across the county are just night and day different from what we had. And I'm just proud that we were able to sit up here and have an argument for an hour and a half, and that argument be, how do we pay our teachers more? And that's a dang good argument to have, and I'll gladly have it anytime with any of you. So even though I wish we could have given them $100,000 a year, but I'm hopeful that once the dust settles on this bite, this big bite that we took, that we can kind of better see where we're at next year, and greatly appreciative of, the work that everybody does to make, every aspect of our school system work. So, thanks.
Ms. Lancaster, Ms. Andrews?
Yeah, I just want to say congratulations to all of our graduates. Proud of you and your accomplishments. Wish you all the best as you move forward. I want to say good luck to those that are continuing to compete this week in GWSAA Spring Fling. We have a multitude of student athletes that are competing. So wish them all the best on that. Just want to pray for our students as they exit our buildings and participate in summer activities. It's an exciting time, but then it's also a time that I, kind of grip my heart because, they're just going to be hard times in summer, and sometimes students don't make great choices. So just pray for safety over them as they travel and interact with each other. And then I also just want to remember the Sullivan family, Dr. Sullivan that's in Rutherford County, and the passing of his son this week. School's family, and school is family here in Sumner County. But I think once you've been participated in any type of school system and so forth, that it extends past just our county borders. And so my heart and prayer goes out to that family and to those students and those schools and just everyone that knows that family, that they will be comforted this week.
Ms. Andrews, Mr. King?
Yeah, so when I first sat down, I got dive bombed by a cicada. It landed right here. I was put it on the floor, and I flung it over there, and then Miss Andrews, she thought quick, got a paper towel out of there, and I picked him up, and he started shrieking. I think you flushed him, right? Yeah. So I got dive bombed by a cicada when I came in here. Yeah, I just want to. I also attended Liberty Creek's graduation for the second year in a row, and that was really great. Really neat to see that and be a part of that. Also, I'm really glad we talked about Benny Bills tonight. That elementary school, Title I school. I visited there about a month ago, and it was really eye-opening, and it was great and wonderful, and concerning as well. And but the teachers there and the staff are really great, and what they're doing. In fact, when I was there, there was they had to lock down the school because they have a runner. They have a student that likes to run away, and so they have a plan that they implemented, and I got to see that go down, and they, of course, the student turned out it was a false alarm. But they were they were ready to intervene within about 30 seconds, and so that was really great. But I would like to, going forward, I would like to look more at our Title I schools. One of the coolest things was they have a therapy dog there. I don't know if you all know about the therapy dog. He made the news. I can't remember his name. Charlie. That's right, Charlie. So I got to meet Charlie, and this dog. I don't know how they've trained him, but if a student is, you talk about escalating, and they're getting more and more agitated, and they're getting, this dog will walk over and put its paw on this child's leg, and that child will immediately respond and de-escalate. And I don't know how they train a dog to do that, and how a dog can sense that, but that's just a really cool thing. I say that to encourage my fellow board members to go visit Benny Bills, see Charlie, see the teachers and staff, and they do a great job there. So, all right, thank you.
Mr. King, Mr. Daniels?
Yeah, I appreciate Mr. Lancaster when he came in talking about the 6-year-old graduation that he got to attend. And I was at field day today at Union, and my daughter's graduating, I guess from 5th grade next week. And is kind of walking down the hallway and seeing all the handprints on the wall that are there, and thinking back about legacy and impact to people. And I've had a student at Union Elementary, if I did the math right, for 20 consecutive years. I feel old. Thank you. Thank you. But, you know, it just made me think, and I guess if you include my 1 year that I was there, it wasn't consecutive, but it'd be 21 years, my 4th grade year when I was at Union. But it just made me think about, like, you know, as we think about the end of the year and we think about our teachers, the legacy and the impact and how many people have been through that school and poured into my kids and all the kids in our county. And, you know, I think like Mr. Lancaster said, we probably all have kids or grandkids that are students in our schools, and I think all of us would say the same thing, that, you know, when we drop our kids off in the morning, we could be proud of the school that we're dropping them off at. And again, not every day's perfect, but I think it's a testament to the teachers, the staff, you know, from the principal, you know, all the way down to, you know, the lowest paid, lowest rung employee. I don't think there's any, because they all make a difference in the lives of our students. I think about, you know, even at Schaefer, you know, my daughter, she graduated from high school a couple of years ago, and probably her best friend at Schaefer was Mr. Malone. And when she graduated and she got her 5 tickets, Mr. Malone got one of those tickets because of the impact that he had. And I just, it's amazing what our personnel give day in and day out, and the impact they have on our students. And I know we talk about money, but you can't put a value on the impact they have on the lives of our students and the difference they make in many of those students' lives. We saw it today, you know, with the young lady that played the cello, you know, talking about her 7th grade or 6th grade music teacher who, you know, who led her to, you know, an instrument that now has become her career. And we see it across the board, you know, whether it's the junior ROTC, the orchestra, you know, the esports team. There are so many different opportunities for our students, and so many different teachers and staff members that give up themselves above and beyond the 8 to 5 or the 8 to 3 or whatever it is on their schedule. And I'm grateful for that, and that we live in a community where we have so many people that care. And I'm thankful for that.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Mr. Wise?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am thankful I was able to attend my 16th White House High School graduation. The ceremony was its usual excellent. But I also want to mention an individual that has meant a lot to our school system over the years, and that is Captain Danny Hurst. Captain Hurst is retired from the Sumner County Sheriff's Office, but many years ago he started our School Resource Officer program and has built it into a nationally recognized program. And I just want him to know that I, for one, and I know this entire board, certainly does appreciate his work for our school system. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too want to congratulate all of our graduates. I got to attend Liberty Creek selfishly on the field, which was really cool because my son, for the duration of the ceremony, was on the far side, sitting from where we were sitting. I couldn't see him the entire ceremony, couldn't take photos. Now he's closer to his mama, and that's what matters. But after they walk, they kind of rotate. And so then he was literally from me to Mr. Daniels on the field, and I got to watch him throw his cap and pick it up like in real time right in front of me. Got some really good videos. So that was a big honor. Got to go to Gallatin High School's graduation, which as far as parents in the audience, there's so much pride. And of course, if you make noise, they do escort you out. But what was funny is you see the pride and you see the yelling and screaming, and those families are already packing their bag. They're like, I'm going to beat the traffic, I'm getting out of here. I came and saw what I wanted to see. And then I got to go to Westmoreland. I'll say a few things. One, I'm proud of all those graduates, and I'm proud of their families for helping get them across the finish line. Two, and this is a fair warning to you, my friend, the legacy tile in the Union cafeteria doesn't stay there forever. I was heartbroken during senior walk when I came to that realization, and we took it down. So.
I've already lost a couple, so.
Oh, it broke my heart. That actually made me cry. I blamed it on the asbestos. And then I'll close with this. We all make decisions standing up here, and they're hard decisions. And there's going to be probably people out in the world who criticize and yell. If you have any questions, ask us. Ask us directly. I'm happy to have a rational conversation with anyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Mr. Gregory?
No comment.
Thank you, Mr. Gregory. Mr. Lacy?
Yeah, I got to attend Westmoreland's graduation. Like I said, I love Westmoreland. One of the young man that was the class president, he got up and he gave a great speech. It was really funny. And he said, you know what people say in Westmoreland, we're really country. But he said, we're country and we're smart. He said, we got 3 valedictorians. And it was really hilarious. And as far as the budget, like I said, I know Ms. Brown and Dr. Langford, y'all worked really hard to prepare this. And it was an honor to give our classified employees a raise. I was at Union talking to one of the husbands of our classified teacher, and she works really hard. She works longer than she's supposed to because she really cares about her job. And it's an honor to give our classified employees the raise that we did. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lacy. Before I get into what I would like to talk about, I need to make a correction in the meeting. I too have a family member that will benefit from the budget, and I would like to go on record as saying that I voted for the entire Sumner County Board of Education. I didn't just vote for one person. So I'd like that entered into the minutes. And then I would like to just tell you how God has such a great sense of humor. I went to the HHS high school graduation, and it looked like it was going to rain, and I thought, no, the Lord's going to let us get by with it. Everything's going to be okay. I did not take my umbrella in. And to my left was Tammy Hayes, and who was next? Jerry Becker. Commissioner Becker was there. They had Tammy had an umbrella for them. On this end was Senator Hale, and the lady sitting next to that, he had an umbrella for there, and I'm sitting in the middle with no umbrella. So
That tells you something right there.
So I think the Lord just kind of looked down, and it rained. I mean, it wasn't a.
It was light.
It was just light. Yeah, it was light, but over an hour and a half, I kind of got a little drink. Thank goodness the lady next to me had it was a broken umbrella, but I did.
And it was an animal print.
Yeah, it was an animal print.
It looked great on you.
Yeah, I loved it. I wouldn't care what it looked like. It could have had roses on it. I was tickled to get it, but I just think the Lord had a good sense of humor. I had the faith to believe that it wasn't going to rain. He goes, I'll fix him for not taking his umbrella in there. Anyway, y'all have a wonderful evening, and thank you very much. We're adjourned.